All our distinguished speakers, our special thanks to all our annual sponsors, Mrs. Bueller, Continental, Fundamax, IAMPL, MTR, SDMIMD, Sona Group, TVS, Vishwas Group, and Wipro for their support to all the activities of the Chamber during the year. A very special acknowledgement goes to today's event sponsor, Mrs. Tata Hitachi Construction Machinery, Karur Vaishya Bank, ASA Associates, Linde India, Conscientia, and KSR & Co. We welcome Dr. Ravindran, our President, BCIC, leaders of the Economic, Corporate Affairs, and Legal Expert Committee, members of the Management Committee, our past presidents, and representatives of our member organizations and all the distinguished delegates for this important session. Now I would request Dr. Omprakash, who is the chairman of Economic Corporate Affairs and Legal Expert Committee and advocate and founder director of Conscientia Consultancy, to take it over from here. Thank you.
Thanks, Rupa. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So, Josh, yes, ready for the full day session? Well, before going into the program and calling the dignitaries on dais, I will just tell what is the program all about. So, ease of doing business is the buzzword, and we thought we will do some representative, getting inputs from various government offices and industry perspective as to how India has traveled in this direction. So this seminar is intended to discuss the journey of India in ease of doing business from government and industry perspective. India is focused on simplifying the business ecosystems in India, which will be enabling to do business in an easily manner. There are some 10 key factors or parameters, I can say, which transform the business environment in India. Starting our business, getting electricity, dealing in construction permits, registering property, protecting minority investors, getting credits, paying taxes, trading across borders, enforcing contracts, resolving insolvency. So, in a meeting conducted by ASSOCHAM, our PM, Narendra Modi ji, went on to say, due to the circumstances which existed before there was time when it was asked, why India? Now, after looking at the impact of the reforms that have taken place in the country, it is being asked, why not India? So that is the level of transformation India has done. India has scaled greater heights. Make in India initiative took India's ranking better in the world's best bank doing business report. The ease of doing business took the center stage. To enhance ease of doing business in the country, systematic and targeted efforts are being made to reduce the number of processes, reduce average time taken, rationalize cost and making it easier to do business in India. Intense engagement with the World Bank to better understand the methodology and also study global best practices helped India in revisiting its strategy for improving business environment. A detailed roadmap was developed in consultation with nodal ministries and states for timely implementation of reforms. As a result, India's rank improved to 63 in Doing Business Report 2020 from 142 in Doing Business Report 2015. As a result of continued efforts of government, India has improved its rank by 79 positions in the last 5 years. India continues to maintain its first position among the South Asian countries as compared to being the sixth position in 2014. This seminar's objective is to bring out various achievements or pressure points or bottlenecks revolving around the ease of doing business. An interactive session which has been organized by Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, which involves government officials, eminent speakers addressing on various topics from the industry perspective and practitioners' perspective. The session will be divided into 5 technical sessions, out of which we have panel discussions also. So broadly, we have 5 categories of technical session: ease of business entity formation, simplification of approvals and commencement of business, simplification of reporting, simplification of restructuring and exist, commercial dispute areas. So we have lined up more than 25 speakers across the country who will be addressing on various topics. So I would request all the delegates to participate, have an interactive session and benefit yourself. At the end of the session, BCIC would like to present or represent to the government with the findings of whatever it is. So with these few words, this is the platform set for today's seminar. I would now request Mr. Sanjay Sood, the ROC Karnataka, to please come on stage. Dr. L. Ravindran, President, Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Dr. G. Ramesh, Professor, Center of Public Policy, Indian Institute of Management at Bangalore. C.S. Parameshwar Bhatt, Chairman ICSI, Bangalore Chapter. C.A. Geeta, Vice Chairman, Southern India Regional Council of ICAI. Welcome, Madam. I would briefly introduce the dignitaries on the dais. Dr. L. Ravindran, with 36 years of work experience, has employment spanning senior management roles in manufacturing and financial services, companies of repute in India and abroad. In his career, he has donned diverse management roles in strategic sales and marketing, customer-centric initiatives, compliance and management reporting, etc. He is with a team spread over 6 cities of India over the last 20 years and involved in handling families across the world in the business of financial services and energy management. His company is past winner of the Rajiv Gandhi National Quality Award and winner for years of the CNBC TV 18 Best Performing Financial Advisor for South India, Dr. L. Ravindran. Next, I would like to introduce Shri Sanjay Sood, ROC Karnataka. Born in 1966, brought up in Delhi, is a member of ICWA, cost accountant, and got into service in 1987 with CNAG for 13 years. He got into MCA in 2003 as corporate legal officer and served ministry and SFIO, Delhi. At present, he is the Registrar of Companies of the Karnataka MCA with 36 years of service experience. Married to Babita Sood, has 2 daughters, elder one who has completed MBA and younger one is graduating, Mr. Sanjay Sood. Dr. G. Ramesh, Professor, Center for Public Policy, Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. Professor Ramesh retired recently from Center for Public Policy of IIM Bangalore after serving for about 2 decades. He is a fellow of the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, and was member of the Indian Economic Service of 1980 batch for a brief period. He is presently engaged with establishing a national level public policy school, the Niti School of Public Policy and Leadership under Jain, deemed to be university. His research interests are in the domain of public policy, public governance, industrial policy, and infrastructure finance. He is presently in the board of NDMC Smart City Limited and has been the board of a public sector bank. Dr. G. Ramesh. C.S. Parameshwar Bhatt, Chairman ICSI Bangalore chapter, practiced as an advocate in the High Court of Karnataka, handling various civil and criminal matters, including corporate matters. Worked as full-time company secretary of a Japanese manufacturing company for a year, handling the secretarial and some of the assignments related to him. Mr. Parameshwar Bhatt. And we have C.A. Geeta, Vice Chairman, Southern Indian Regional Council of ICSI. And she has come here, and their ICSI and ICAI are our partners in this event. Hearty welcome to all of you. Now, before going into the session, I would request all of you to join the lighting ceremony.
Shubham kurutvam kalyanam arogyam dhanasampadah. Shubham kurutvam kalyanam arogyam dhanasampadah. Shatru buddhi vinashaya deepajyotir namostute. Deepajyotir namostute. Shubham kurutvam kalyanam arogyam dhanasampadah.
C.A. Geeta, the chairman, vice chairman, she wants to leave for the other program. I think she is supposed to do a welcome address there. Madam, we would like to receive our. Thank you, C.A. Geeta, for joining us, despite your busy schedule. Now I request our President, Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Dr. L. Ravindran, to give a smart welcome address.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ, ಬೆಳಗಿನ ಶುಭಾಶಯಗಳು. BCIC ಮತ್ತು ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ICSI the Bengaluru chapter of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಕ್ಕೆ ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಆತ್ಮೀಯ ಮತ್ತು ಪ್ರೀತಿಯ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. Welcome, respected dignitaries on the dais, speakers and dignitaries, members of BCIC, distinguished panelists, students, faculty, members of the Secretariat, and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for making it this morning to the first edition of this year's Ease of Doing Business seminar, which is likely to be a very interesting matter in the context of this state as well as the country. I find that this seminar is very broad-based, starting from the commencement of business to simplifying processes, to making the organization run successfully, smoothly, smartly, as Dr. Omprakash said about the welcome speech, and similarly in the context of even getting into insolvency and exiting the businesses. This is going to be a wonderful event. I wish and hope that all of you have the patience to stand by and participate in this seminar till the end and not leave abruptly post-lunch. This is my request. I would like to thank the sponsors. All of them are named, running behind me. I think 6 or 7 of them. The Secretariat, the team of the Corporate and Legal Economic Affairs Committee, led by Dr. Omprakash, Mr. Venkatakrishnan, the mentor, Mr. D. Ramprasad. I would like each of you to, Dr. Omprakash is here, Mr. Venkatakrishnan is here. He is the former advisor, Tata Hitachi Construction Machinery. If you could identify yourself, sir. Thank you very much. We'd like to give you a clap. Mr. D. Ramprasad, ASA Associates. Thank you, sir. Mr. P. G. Subramaniam, ICTMA Barrister. Barrister Dr. Shrikant Parthasarthi. Thank you. There are 2 Ravichandrans and Ravichandar, I'm sorry. Mr. N. Ravichandar, former Treasury Head, Linde, India. Mr. Ravichandran. Mr. Pankaj Jain. Thank you. If I missed anyone, I'm extremely sorry for that, but I'm sure the team did a commendable job of putting through a wonderful program in less than 2 weeks. And getting 29 speakers, I'm told, is as good as doing a 3-day conclave. Thank you very much. My speech is supposed to be a welcome speech. I've been asked to do a smart work, so therefore I am going to put up something which is very interesting. This is not a traditional welcome speech. And I've been forced to put up a welcome speech, much against my liking, thanks to my good friend, Mr. Venkatakrishnan. So I have something interesting for you. So I play this, is it? How do you move this forward? Yeah. So here it is. I am not able to see much. You might be wondering what is this all about. It doesn't come here, I don't know. So my friend Abdul Majid, based in Calcutta, has this food cart. And he works from 6 in the morning till about 10 in the night. He makes 30,000 rupees every day, which is a substantial sum of money. But that includes the cost of goods bought, the efforts that he puts in throughout the day, which is as good as 18 hours, and finally he ends up with a net margin of about 1,000 rupees per day. When calculated on a monthly basis, it works out a paltry 30,000 rupees. So this gentleman starts dreaming. He has a right to dream, which is not as per the Constitution. right? Right to breathe, right to live, all of that is there, but right to dream is not possibly part of the Constitution. So here, so he now tries to, So he now tries to aspire that one day he should have a corporate office in Burj Khalifa. Nothing wrong, right? All of us can be ambitious, can be aspirational. So this gentleman now decides that he should shift his base somewhere else, or at least in one of the skyscrapers in the city of Calcutta or Bangalore or wherever else, where he can make better money, and he's very optimistic about his future. When he's optimistic, the next thought that comes to him is that he should own a house, something on this line of thinking. Why am I saying this? Every person has a right to dream. Every person wants betterment in life. If this can apply to an individual, why not to an entrepreneur? Why not to a businessman? Why not to a corporate honko? Why not to a self-employed personnel? Everyone wants betterment. And I'm referring to betterment in the ways of running businesses. I'm going to play a very different role. Most times we hear about criticisms of India not on par with the best. I'll give you a couple of examples. I may possibly differ in the views, but I'm going to play a middle path. India is not a bad place to do business. Thanks to gentlemen like Mr. Sood, registrar of companies present here, many other government functionaries, the land of India has changed in its landscape and in terms of its positional values. So let me give you some interesting matters which will be very heartwarming to each one of us. The NRIs and the foreign institutional investors, many of them have grave doubts. They think the ground reality is very different. Not that they do not want our country to be the first destination for investment and business, but the practical aspects on how the government machinery functions, they believe is too cumbersome for any entrepreneur to lose initiative among Indian waters. I happen to see a message on Twitter. The sender says, ease of doing business is a joke in India. Look at the list of documents you need to have to open an account in any bank. And there are basic documents like, submitting your photograph to passport to few other documents, balance sheet, and all of that. These are important matters which is required by any bank. So the reply to the sender by another gentleman is that ease of doing business does not mean that you get up one day, just go up to the bank and think that they'll just go for your word. KYC is and will always be important. It's a business you're setting up, not a stall on roadside, as the way we saw Abdul Majid. So mentioned documents are important. After a long time, in my view, India is finally getting its due. While we were languishing at the World Bank's league tables for its entire existence. Why am I saying this? The World Bank's index is no more relevant post-2019. And I think the way we have moved and progressed forward, I think we should be somewhere closer to 50 or even above that. World Bank league tables, in my view, is not something that is accomplished through some theory of globalization or win-win mumbo-jumbo. What we try to do is, you win by beating others, very similar to what CSK and Mumbai Indians do all the time. Find the weakness, make a strong case to press for India's competitive advantage the next time the World Bank's bean counters come into town. I will give you some very interesting statistics that I went through thanks to my good friend Mr. Venkatakrishnan, who woke me up to ensure that I deliver this welcome speech. So I had to prepare myself. Let me give you a wonderful anecdotes. In the year 2019 and before, ahead of India were the following countries: Dominican Republic, Dominica, Malta, Puerto Rico, Samoa, Seychelles, Saint Lucia, Tonga, and the next one I'm unable to spell. It is called Vanuatu. So there has been gross unfairness to which India has been subjected to for all these years. All these God-forsaken islands, I'm sorry to say this, are located on islands who have turquoise waters, heavenly breezes that even blow away the carbon monoxide and sulfur dioxide. Let me also give you one interesting fact about how the World Bank went about doing this job. I'm not a critic of World Bank, but let me give you a simple example. The World Bank bases its analysis on survey focusing on major cities in a country. 2 major cities are taken into account. In India's case, it was Mumbai and Delhi. What World Bank did is they separated the bureaucracy from the business capital. They gave higher weightage to Delhi, 53%, and 47% to Mumbai. And the people who came from World Bank, they were trying to understand the cost of getting a building permit in Mumbai, and they felt that it was too high compared to the country's per capita income. Mumbai's building permit rate compared to the country's per capita income. Luckily, some people from India woke up and said that Mumbai is home to 46,000 millionaires and 28 billionaires. Then they revised the per capita income of the country to the per capita of Mumbai and felt that it was fairly reasonable. What are these countries like Dominica, Samoa, and Vanuatu offer? They offer income in the form of tourist income. Do they produce any goods? Do they service anything? Possibly tourist services are exemplified. To claim that any of these nations even have a single city to survey is a joke, leave alone the 2 megalopolises that India has to offer, Delhi and Mumbai, and whose population is about 50 million compared to 9 islands which are ahead of India, whose population is only 16 million, right? So, and most importantly, the last one is even more interesting. Even Bhutan was placed ahead of India in terms of ease of doing business. The fact of the matter is that people wanting to go to Bhutan had to fly through Delhi. To go ahead in the ranking, all that one had to do was disrupt the connecting flight, right? And India could have moved one step ahead. I think each of the other countries en route to the top 80 club, or 60 or 70 of them, can be similarly dealt with using a customized competitive strategy. So I am fairly of the view that Achhe Din and better days are ahead for India. I will also like to talk about 2 important aspects. During the COVID 2020, there are many dime a dozen virtual seminars which are on offer, and one of them happened to be an invitation to reside in Malta. So I happened to attend this interesting seminar, and they said you have to pay some certain amount of money in foreign currency, and that money is locked in as capital for the rest of your lifetime. So then I asked a very interesting question. I'm an entrepreneur. How do I become an entrepreneur? They said, no, you cannot never become an entrepreneur. You have to be an employee of somebody who is a national of Malta. So that's absolute slavery. 2 nights prior, I was invited by a team of people. They were from Canada, businessmen based in Canada, and they were people of Turkish origin. So they said, we have invited you and few others who are all startup entrepreneurs, and we would like you to come and set up businesses in Turkey or Canada. Your choice is yours. So I said, what is there on offer? They said, sir, as you know, startups fail. 90%, 95% of them fail. So we will offer them immediate registration. They will come there with their families. If they fail, they become residents and they'll grow the economy. What is wrong? So this is the tactic, right? So it was very interesting. I was there. On our part, BCIC, we are committed to deliver the best when it comes to these policy reforms. Having said that, we are instrumental in bringing about a significant change to the corporates of Bangalore, Karnataka, of bringing up a huge respite in the reduction of CFO, which fees, I think, equalize something like about, what, 500 crores? 500 crores or something, and that was brought down by due representation. So on the part of BCIC, I would like to once again reiterate the fact that we'll do our best, and based on the deliberations and the resolutions that follow, we'll be able to represent to the ministers, the powers to be, the bureaucrats, ensure that we do justice to this seminar and to all the corporates who are our members and also the non-members, and make India proud. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you once again.
Thank you, President. You gave the glimpse of power to dream. Students, those who are here, please do not dream here. Dream big. So with this, we will start the keynote session. Basically, we had divided into 3 parts, and we had invited Honorable Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar also. Due to his preoccupation, he was not able to make it. We apologize for the same. This is bound to happen when we, engage bureaucrats and ministers. Any urgent program comes, this will become the least priority. Maybe we will bounce back and we'll bring to the table next time. Now I would request Mr. Sanjay Sood, the Registrar of Companies, to address on few facts and prospective government plans on formation and reporting from the MCA side. Welcome, sir.
Dr. L. Ravindran, President BCIC, Dr. K.V. Omprakash, Chairman Economic, Corporate and Legal Expert Committee, Dr. G. Ramesh, Professor, IIM Bangalore, C.S. Parmeshwar Bhatt, Chairman ICSI, other dignitaries and dear friends, a very good morning to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank the Bengaluru chapter of Industry and Commerce for providing me an opportunity to be among this august gathering of professionals and corporates. The topic of discussion, I would say, is very relevant and has a vast potential of providing huge impetus to the business environment in India if deliberated, discussed and implemented in the right spirit. The government of India has been aware of the fact that for a developing country and economy, the key to wealth creation lies in the ease of doing business, which in turn spurs or helps in triggering the entrepreneurship and innovation in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. The churning had started way back when MCA 21 was launched. It was a major initiative of digitizing the process of incorporation of a company and also facilitating filing of forms in connection with the corporate compliance under the Companies Act. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs, in line with the government policy of further easing process of doing business, has taken many steps over the last few years, which primarily focus on allowing the companies to operate smoothly, securely, and also facilitate easy exit. The government has also laid adequate emphasis on providing enabling business environment to small companies as well as startups through appropriate changes not only in the corporate laws but also in the processes of MCA 21. Some of the major initiatives I would like to share are: the term startup has been defined for the purpose of the Companies Act 2013. As per the definition, a startup company means a private company incorporated under the Companies Act 2013 and recognized as a startup in accordance with the notification issued by the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. Now, considering the requirement of support in the form of finance, a private company which is considered to be a startup for a period of 5 years from the date of its incorporation is also allowed to accept deposits from the members without any restriction on the amount. And again, a private company, if such a private company is a startup, the annual return can be signed by company secretary or director of the company. Again, a private company, which is a startup, is required to conduct at least one meeting of the board of directors in each half of the calendar year, and the gap between two meetings may not be less than 90 days, thereby easing the compliance burden. The ministry has also issued notification increasing the period in which ESOPs could be granted to promoters and directors holding more than 10% equity of startups from 5 years to 10 years from the date of incorporation, thereby align the provisions of Companies Act with the provisions referred to in the DPIIT notification of February 2019. Then in the area of corporate social responsibility funds, Schedule 7 under the Section 135 of the Companies Act, this has been amended to include contribution to incubators funded by central government or state government, or any agency or public sector undertaking of the central government or state government, and contributions to public funded universities, IITs, national laboratories and autonomous bodies, Indian Council of Medical Research, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, Department of Atomic Energy, Defense Research and Development Organization, Department of Science and Technology, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, engaged in conducting research in science, technology, engineering, and medicine aimed at promoting sustainable development goals. Many of the offenses and non-compliances under the Companies Act have also been decriminalized. Then Ministry has also launched a new integrated web form named as Spice Plus, replacing the existing Spice form. This Spice Plus form would offer 10 services by 3 central government ministries and departments and 1 state government, thereby saving as many procedures, time and cost for starting a business in India, and would be applicable to, for all new companies incorporations with effect from 23rd February 2020. It has 2 parts. Part A for name reservation for the new companies, and Part B offering a bouquet of services like incorporation, DIN allotment, mandatory issue of PAN, mandatory issue of TAN, mandatory issue of EPFO registration, mandatory issue of ESIC registration, mandatory issue of professional tax registration in Maharashtra, and mandatory opening of bank account for the company, allotment of GSTIN, if applied. Then there has been amendment in companies' share capital and debentures rules also. A notification was issued on 5th of June 2020, increasing the period in which set equity shares from 5 years to 10 years from the date of incorporation, and thereby aligned the provisions of companies' share capital and debenture rules with the provisions referred to in DPIIT notification. There has been amendment in companies' acceptance of deposit rules also. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs issued a notification in September 2020, increasing the period of issue of convertible notes from 5 years to 10 years from the date of issue, and thereby aligned the provisions of, again, Companies Act acceptance of deposit rules with the provisions referred to in DPIIT notification. The amendment in companies' acceptance of deposit rules has also been made, whereby the maximum limit in respect of deposits to be accepted from the members by a private company shall not apply to a startup company for 10 years from the date of its incorporation, instead of earlier prescribed 5 years. Then incorporation of one-person companies by allowing OPCs to grow without restriction on paid-up capital and turnover, allowing their conversion into any type of company at any time, reducing the residency limit for an Indian citizen to set up an OPC from 182 days to 120 days only, and also allowed NRIs to incorporate OPCs in India. There has been amendment in Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code also. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs issued a notification in August 2022 harmonizing the definition of startup with DPIIT notification dated 19th February 2019. Now, one of the very recent initiative has been establishment of Center for Processing Accelerated Corporate Exit, that is CPACE, for providing a centralized hassle-free filing, timely and process-bound striking of companies from MCA registry. Now, along with all these initiatives, I would also like to mention that Ministry is equally aware of the instances of corporate vehicle being used to commit frauds not only towards the exchequer but also towards the general public. Now, with a view to regulate such corporates and enforce stricter compliance mechanism, the Ministry has also been utilizing the MCA 21 system to caution, forewarn and filter out non-compliant companies and take appropriate action against them. Measures are also being taken to coordinate with other regulatory and investigation agencies by putting in place a mechanism whereby inputs are shared among delinquent corporates and their directors and promoters. The use of artificial intelligence in this area would go a long way in achieving the objective. With this, I would like to thank for patience, and I hope that these initiatives would go a long way in achieving the desired results. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir. You really brought the essence of all the government initiatives to come, already come, and also you have warned the vehicles being used for defrauding the investors and misusing the corporate vehicle. Thank you, sir. I think you have done a great homework. Sorry for that. Now we move on to the next speaker, keynote address. Dr. G. Ramesh, all yours, sir.
Thank you, sir, for inviting me for this talk. Respected President Omprakash, Ravindran ji, Omprakash ji, Sood ji. So when they call me, when Dr. Ravindran and Omprakash ji call me, so I ask them, do you really want me only, or I can suggest some speakers to you? Because my experience has been, I'll make some sincere preparation and come. Then after I present, people will say, Professor, your presentation was very good, but it's very academic. Now, if a professor is not academic, do you expect politicians to be academic? I don't understand. Can you tell a surgeon, sir, you did too much of surgery? I used to really wonder. So I don't know also whether it's a compliment or they are really, pulling my leg down or something like that, pulling my leg. So that's why I told you, I can still, give the option. And that's where it is. It's a very interesting topic. I'll just wait for the, it's loaded, for the PowerPoint to be loaded. And meanwhile, like Dr. Indra was saying, and Mr. Sood was saying, a lot of things actually changed. Let me tell you where I come from. Recently, I wrote one sort of a report for DPIIT, and this sort of a PMO initiative. They wanted all the new initiative which happened probably post 2014 to be captured and brought out like a document. In fact, your department itself needs to inventorize whatever it has done, because you keep issuing circulars and then they need to be really mapped, consolidated, and like that. So much has happened actually, if you really see. So much automation has happened. And it's really time for stock taking for the ministry itself. In fact, I have one big suggestion for you all, if you can come up with it at the end of the day. I think we need a different name for the ease of doing business. Ease of doing business is PASS. We need to really look at, if you want $1 trillion, $10 trillion, what sort of systems and government and processes that we want that can really take us there, and not like, this form is, we should change, this field we should change and all. In fact, in the end, I'm going to say that don't get into forms and fields, because you go with 5 ideas, they will come with 10 more ideas. Okay, because this also I want to make it like a caveat that government will be intrusive. The appetite for government is very huge. Okay, I'm in the NDMC Smart City Council. There are like 2,000 cameras parked all over Delhi being captured, and then everything being tracked. Because you ask the question, if something happens, what's the police doing? What's the police doing? Why is the guy not arrested within 1 hour? Okay. So it will be intrusive. People will ask question, how did he escape the country? okay, if something happens, okay. But it will be hands-off. Government will be hands-off. It's not going to be really intrusive in that sense. It will just keep tracking, that's all. And it will have enough filters to really see who to track and who. I mean, you know what? Whenever I used to walk out of the customs in the airport, just to irritate the guy, say, do I have to declare? I'll say, now this guy looking at my face, you'll know that, I mean, you are not even worth, doing. That's the way they really treat us, isn't it? I mean, so this is the future, welcome to this. And as I said, I wrote like complexity is actually a science now. Okay, complexity economics, complexity business. For example, I'll tell you, sir, I mean, it might be useful for you. I mean, one of the MNC bank, they found that globally they got 220 ways of opening accounts. State Bank of account, sorry, not State, SB account. Okay, then they reduced it after doing the proper analysis, consolidated, brought it down to 15 ways of opening the accounts globally, which will be compliant with all regulations, all central banks. So that's what is really required. If you really, drill down, pull your sleeves and then really look at it and like that. Now, I mean, I hope it's readable. So basically, I'll go through 2-3 slides on how do people view ease of doing business. Okay, so they talk about setting up a business. When you talk about setting up business, why are you worried so much about the exit plan? Exit way. You know what? Exit can probably happen 5% of the people who set it up or 10% of the people. I mean, don't go for setting up system for exceptions. Go for setting up systems for normal. What's really, that's what I would really say. In fact, only in government, I have seen people thinking about pension when they join government. Okay. And then, but we are always worried about solvency and no, I'm not, that's very important. That's very important. That can also be a point of harassment. But I'm looking at, I mean, what should be a priority when you really ask for reform, Because in the end, I'm going to say what you should really be asking the government. It's not like, don't ask 2 dozen things and like that. Then they talk about land, which is a major issue. Land, I'll tell you one thing. In one of the seminars, I mean, probably all the industry secretaries and all were there. They say land is a big issue. You know why? Any foreign guy comes. In Chennai also I have seen, here I have seen other. You show only Chennai, Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi. Beyond that, nothing exists. Okay, I in fact gave a, obviously you will have a land problem. Okay, and you know what? Once a team of, I'm taking a few minutes, I hope you don't mind. Once a team of few railway senior officers visited Japan, and then we have our own railway manufacturing unit, Chittaranjan and all, with 1,200 acres. This unit in Japan makes 10 times the number of engines that Chittaranjan makes. Its area is 20 acres. Do you understand where the land problem is coming in? Why do IIMs need 100 acres, 200 acres? Putting that fencing itself is costing, and then in Nagarbavi, they couldn't even put the fence, and layouts are there in Nagarbavi University. Okay. So let's understand where is the problem coming from. And, don't bark at the wrong tree, they say many times. Then, of course, the environment, yes. Environment, again, I mean, at least 80% doesn't require environment, isn't it? So only focus on that 20% where you really need. And then let's not make it like everybody is suffering. People who has environment problem will have to face it, and they will handle it. They'll have to handle that, I'm saying these are all getting simplified and really getting handled. Then you have got the labor regulation, of course. Labor is still a, unsettled thing. I mean, not much progress we have really made in labor. Then, of course, utilities are today, I don't think it's a big issue, water or power and all those things. If you really look at, I mean, that's one of the reasons we moved up the ease of doing, actually, 2014 to 2022 or like that. Then, of course, carrying out inspections. I mean, it has changed, but, what's happening is that, if I can give 2 statements. One is, whatever you may say about ease of doing, FDA is happening. Whatever may be happening in ease of doing, harassment is happening. Isn't both true? So try to see how is it happening? Okay. And then, of course, enforcing contracts. I mean, enforcing contracts, okay, make a presentation to the judges. Okay, and then, that's where the problem lies. I mean, and then if you look at it, yes, it's beautiful. Starting a business, we have improved. I don't know, I mean, it's still 136, I'm surprised. Then enforcing contracts, resolving bankruptcy. All these things I improved. I mean, I took it from official statistics only. And then dealing with construction permits. And then, in fact, some of the criteria itself have to keep changing, I think. I mean, we are still going on with the 2015. I mean, don't you think that, our own aspirations and expectations will go up and something should get resolved, something should be added, isn't it? I mean, what is this list itself actually? I really don't understand. Next time I talk to any of these World Bank guys or DPID guys, I'm going to really tell them, because yeah, you guys change, otherwise my guys don't change. Okay, so that's what I really plan to tell them. Okay, then getting credit, protecting minority investors and paying taxes. One point I would like to take from Dr. Ravindran, what he said, and with my own experience from my Bangalore, is that if you go by the rankings are important, stay away from that. Okay, if you keep improving, rankings will happen. So don't worry about the ranking. I mean, it's not like, still we are getting FDA, that's what I keep saying, but try to see where does it pinch and then where is it really, you should be focused on like that. Because what's happening is that sometimes ranking may improve, but situation may not improve, let's say. Hypothetically, that's possible, isn't it? Then what are you talking about, So this is what is about. Then if you look at another way to look at, I look at what are the aspects people really talk about. These are only sprinkling. There's a large list and like that. In fact, the latest list has 171 items and like that of the DPIIT, if you see. Sorry, I don't know if it's readable, I'm sorry. Then you have like, investment climate. That's another way they look at. Index again. There's lots of problems with, again, index, but let's go. At least that indicators give us something. Okay, so let's chase those indicators. And one is like, I heard that after this, some committee will be sitting and coming up with some recommendations for the government. I'll be happy to finally look at it and then give my suggestions, or even any one of the meetings I can join. Point is, you set matrices which they should satisfy. If this has happened, like it talks about hours of power outages last year. What is the approval time for something? What's the process time for something? Okay, like that if you give, that is the way to really talk about, rather than saying, some other indicators you have, and then saying that we have moved up the rank from here to here. Take some 3-4 indicators for each of these matrices that you are talking about, which should get reflected on field. How many inspections made by the factory inspectors, let's say, okay. So these are how many notices you got, from income tax or something like that, So these are the ones they talk about. Another thing they talk about is the perception. But let me tell you one thing. Once we did a study of the, all the central government, it was done by the Cabinet Secretary Office, and then I was helping them. It's found that, I'm really speaking for the government. Actually, sometimes the performance improves, perceptions still don't change. We may still carry the same perception of passport office or police or some of these, even though drastic changes have been happening there and things like that, even public grievances systems and all that, So they need to really work something about even articulating and then promoting and really sending messages across what has been really happening. But let's not go by that, because you are all participant of that, isn't it? You are all the, So you don't need somebody else's perception to really understand where it's, there's one saying in Tamil which says that you don't need a mirror to see what's in the palm, isn't it? You all know it, So you don't need another index, you don't need a ranking, you don't need an indicator to show where you are and like that, okay. And another way people look at it, like investment climate, for example, so the government is going the other way. Finally, I'll summarize what have been the approaches of government. In fact, instead of saying that earlier, let's say I'm saying 80s, my period, and the 90s and all, if you see, okay. What used to happen, reform means, they will say that, sir, we have brought down the draft amount from 25,000 rupees to 10,000 rupees, sir. Then the mega industries will come because the 10,000, 25,000 rupees like that. Sir, we have removed the money order requirement, sir. Okay, so this is what, very, very cosmetic, very, very stupid. Okay, now they are really got into, for example, they don't really look at, they identified industries, they have earmarked land banks, they have earmarked I'm saying central governments, also state governments, and then say that, are you interested? We have got it ready and like that. So I'm sure, one of the things that you people should ask is, ask for a plug and play systems when you move in. Now, you think what would mean plug and play systems if you had to really set up an industry? Think from manufacturing angle, because that's the most complex and like that, not from services and like that, So that's where you should really move, and that is why service sector grew up in India, because you have got a plug and play system. Now, can I have it in the manufacturing? That's the question to pose. I always say that how you pose the question will get you what answers you get, And then increased effectiveness. So they no longer talk about more incentive, less incentive or something. They really talk about whatever you do, is it effective? Is it really the, what you call as necessary and sufficient condition. So look at what is the necessary condition and what is the sufficient condition to get people, okay. Just having a system or improvement and all is not the improvement per se. Does it really felt? That's why the perception also comes, The effectiveness is that perception comes actually, And then, of course, barriers, and then transparency is one of the things that globally they keep talking about, okay. And that's something should be the mantra. You give probably 5, let's say principles, preamble, what they should really satisfy. Do these satisfy 5 criteria? I want this information. Does it, that this meet these 5 criteria? Then you have it, otherwise you drop it. That's the way I would really do that. Then, of course, procedures. See, one important thing happened in the 1991, okay, which I don't know. I have not seen much discussion there, seminars. Till 1991, what used to happen is that if you apply for a license, it is in your onus to get the license. Today, if you apply for a post-1991, if they don't get back to you, you take it as approved. That is a sea change. That's a sort of paradigmic change that we need. In fact, I told income tax, once one member, so if you don't get either refund or any notice in for 6 months, can you take it that mine is approved? That's all. Otherwise, then there'll be some ceiling on them to get back, isn't it? There should be some timeline. It's not like you keep it open, my accounts are like that. They said, no, how can we do it and all that? Okay, but I said, we have done it in other field. Why can't, what's complex about your field, isn't it? So that, do you mean to say that my doctor, if he says the surgery will take 45 minutes, he finishes in 45 minutes with all my complexity. Is it yours more complex than, what a surgeon does? I told you about surgery, I will be doing it, Then efficient, yeah. Then you look at, where all it's happening. So I was talking about various aspects. It's only very small sprinkling to show categories, types of, things. Look at the investment climate, for example. Another way they look at it, how does the investment climate look at? Okay, ease of doing aspects, investment climate, and then the sort of categories. So one way is improved promotion, then we looked at all that. Then areas of intervention. So the areas of intervention, what do they do? Single window. I looked at how they classify the states. One is a single window agency. Okay. This was my experience with, Commissioner, if you come, maybe we can ask, 5 years back. When I went to the COM, so there's a guy representing electricity board sitting there. He doesn't have the latest circulars. He doesn't have the latest information. Probably they send a guy there who is parable. Okay, from the electricity board. So I think what is on paper, there's a single window system, isn't it? So this is where, what will you do? Do you want to change in the form, or you should really look at where that change should happen? What is the suggestion I gave? I said, have your own accredited, now income tax is doing that. I suggested it when income tax was not doing that. Your own accredited guy who can fill up the form, submit to you. Once he submits, it's done. You understand? So that trust should be developed, okay? Because otherwise, in what happens in public grievances system, the moment they take your form for something, then it is accepted, it's complete. After that, they cannot ask you for a document, isn't it? Once they take it. So don't take it and keep asking one by one. So please look at some of these, where it really pinches and like that. Then they talk, increasingly, as I said, it will be self-declarations. It's no more, they'll really come, inspect, and then they'll attach and things like that. And then, of course, automations and e-filing. Now, I want to make one more point here. You all said that actually requirement for information will go, appetite for information will go. When the SOX Act was implemented in US, there was again a big hue and cry. Imagine how much impact all the consulting companies, all the software companies, immediately opened one vertical with President SOX Act. Okay, so you can imagine the business potential of that. Okay, obviously companies will crib. Maybe it was something like maybe $100 billion or $1 trillion. Reality is companies finally realized that if they fine-tune the system to fill up the SOX Act, their own internal systems improved a lot. Okay, so you really see like how do you, organize yourself internally so that anybody asks, you can just shoot it off. You don't have to really rewrite for them another thing. So they develop software like that. Sorry, I'll take few more minutes on this. Then, of course, the inspection reforms and then the judicial proceedings. So these are the ways they really rank the states and like that. And then you look at, this is another version it has taken out there, business reform action plan. This is again, of course, more than 5 years old. So they have identified 300 reform points. I think you should get the list there and see what is our take on that. And then some 15 regulatory areas and like that. So what I would like to say is that sometimes I would say that, I attend several meetings like this. Many times when it is being discussed, I know in the ministry this is already discussed, a lot of suggestions have come, it's stuck for some reason or other, or maybe amendment, or, that's where it is. This at that level of reform, it's not that, so do look at something which is really, something which will make a change, which will make a difference. Otherwise, they would have heard it. When you send a suggestion, please take it for granted, they would have heard it. Okay, that's where I would say, because they get it from different sources, isn't it? Under 9 sectors. Now, so they have moved to the next one. So they don't want to say states are bad, good, ugly, and all that. They say top achievers, okay? And then aspirers, emerging business ecosystem. No, can I give MBA degree like that? He is a top achiever, okay? And then he's an achiever, he's an emerging guy. Will you recruit? Okay, and then, but that's what we do. It is practical, because moment you do, papers take it on, isn't it? Media takes it on and blows it out of proportion. So that way I appreciate it's tactical to do. So then they looked at Karnataka. One thing I would like to say, I looked at several years, several periods. It's not in the top 5, I would say, somehow, isn't it? For what we are, being a Silicon Valley city, and then, the sort of intellectual city it is, entrepreneurial city it is, okay? And the sort of young profile it is, we deserve to be the top 3. At least ask for, how do we move it to the top 1 and top 3 in the all ranking, and that should come automatically, when you really meet some of those requirements like that. Reality is today it is not, for all the reform that could have happened and like that. And we have no business to be, beyond 3, given that. Then, of course, one thing I would like to say is that, so what are we targeting? One thing I want to make, I made a point, is that don't take it, all countries are regulated probably more than us or some are at par with us. It's not, leave out all those island countries and things like that, tax havens and things like that. We cannot compare with them. We had really compared with Europe and then America, North America and Australia and things like that. So they have been basically targeting simplification, redundancy removal, single window, e-filing and all that. Then improved processes, institutional reform. For example, in DPIIT, I found they have set up cabinet secretary level committees, secretary level committees to really track, the industries and things like that, And then, again, as I told you, warners for sanctions, okay? Now it should be, in 1 state or 2 states, I know the moment a mega industry is showing interest, one of the principal secretaries are saying to that. He may be a principal secretary labor, but he still, it becomes his responsibility walking through all the approvals and like that. Okay, so that's the sort of thing that happens. And then increasingly, the next move that is happening, again, like ESOP doing, they are now looking at sectoral reforms, like construction you'll be doing, and education you should look at, like that several sectors you come up with, you set up your own subcommittees, and then you should be really doing. Then I again talked about complexity. This is again another chaos model. Okay, so you look at two systems. I mean, chaos model, complexity model, what does it mean? That there are all these subsystems moving in their own directions, and how do their interfaces and interactions happen? So you really look at it like, how we should really improve this interface. I'll come up with some suggestions in my last slide, only one more slide. So again, they look at basically, one thing I would say is the intention to reform is no longer, one intention to reform itself comes from dissatisfaction with the presence, isn't it? I mean, that is there, and severe top pressure is there in all states and then the PM level. And then, of course, there's also, because today everything they put in the, put it on the YouTube, isn't it? I mean, Facebook, Twitter, and all that. So there's a fear of harassment, then shedding rules, then making start. So these are the ways all governments have been trying to do, and reduce cost of compliance, and then tax reforms and things like that. So no doubt these are all happening. What you do is don't think anything incremental. Say that I want to be there. Okay, then you ask them, how do you really go there? That's the sort of thing that I would, so that's why I don't get into tinkering shop, So I would say that ask for outcome-related processes. You say that don't get into forms. You say that I want this approved in 30 days' time, 15 days' time. Set the principle timelines and then let them work it backward. How much time is their process time? One bank for a home loan, it used to take average time of 3 months. These are all 20-year-old stories. I'm touting it as some recent invention or something. Okay. After it did process, it realized it need only 2 hours to approve the loan. Okay. Then it started offering 24 hours approval. Okay. So our own benchmarks are there. So you should really look at what are our benchmarks and all that. Okay. Then ask for timelines, set benchmarks. Set benchmarks. They are income tax used to say that earlier we used to take 210 days. Now we are doing it in 160 days, let's say. But 210 days itself is not a benchmark. And then you say that now it is, can I have my BP like that, sugar readings like that, and then satisfy that, it was 300, now I'm 200, and then give me some sweet and ice cream and like that, So this is what benchmark is this. So you have to really put the pressure there. I mean, don't talk about, things. Why I'm talking this? There was once a consultation meeting, town hall meeting happened in another 5-star hotel. Nirmala Sitharaman was there. All the people were there. Everything was about, madam, this section, this is happening. And only CBDT members are answering, not the minister, because she's not her job. You get what I'm saying? The entire discussion was that. Then I asked the CBDT person, why did you call me then, if this is going to be that? I'm not a tax expert or something like that. This is what I'm saying. I mean, just be clear about what. They easily answered all that, And then increasingly what will happen is that ask for trust-based system. Okay, that's what you really need, where self-declarations and all that. And then finally, how do you reduce litigation? I would advise you people also, don't use litigation, to postpone, to use it for, why do you go for litigation? To resolve issues, isn't it? Then why are you postponing it, isn't it? You should really try to resolve it then. If litigation is the purpose, resolve it, because I myself is one of the sufferers. That's what I'm telling in housing project. Okay, and I'm sure you have got a session on that. One of the ways I would like you people to look at this, something called system thinking. Just put out like a put out like a CPM chart per chart. Then you find which is the department, like environment, land. These are the most likely the two ones which will take time. All other departments will not be so important. So they will lose the value actually, if you really are. You get what I'm saying? So you look at where is it going to pinch. Then look at all those reform, the critical path, what falls on the critical path. Stay focused on that, then everything will fall in place. Otherwise what will happen, all the ROC thing is done in 15 days, but let's say environment take 1 year. What will you do? You take, then they push you. Why haven't you opened bank account? Why haven't you put equity in? Then why haven't you put... And then I have to hire a chartered accountant, I have to hire all those filing, everything I have to start without any approvals, So everything has to be synchronous. It's not like one thing is very ahead. In fact, that's what I said in smart cities also, I keep saying. You cannot have elevated roads and metro and have a dirty city. Is it? And then call it smart city. Is it? Because it's ahead of other cities. Okay. You cannot, because solid waste is so bad, So you have to be really synchronous. Then, what I would like you to talk about is basically, for 1 trillion, 10 trillion, how should my systems look like? How should my government look like? Then 80-20 rule, look at what the 80 think, just let it pass. Don't get it clogged. Then set targets, timeline. Faceless process, again, another. I'm sure your process also mostly faceless, and faceless so much that I don't see my chartered accountant also. Okay, not just the government, but I'm really appreciating the CAs here. I'm not saying they are also learned to really do that way, all of them. My own brother is my CA. I do have to see him. And then adopt system approach. This is what I said. Just map it and see how does it look like. Where is really the time taken? Present it to the government. Present it in newer ways. Don't do it in the same your own ways like that. And assess from critical point. Focus on where it pinch. One thing I would like to say is the best way to solve it. You think from their angle. Let them think from your angle. You will know where they are coming from, they will know where you are coming from. Because I know both sides. On some issues, I keep talking to them. Ramesh, but you are saying this, but this is what happens. Okay. So see where do you resolve, and probably somewhere you need to reach a consensus among yourself on certain things. Isn't it? So this is my honest suggestion. I told you, I warned you, I'm an academician. And then you really invited me, And states have a larger role. Incidentally, this is my final point, that center role is very less today. Actually, reforms have passed to state, whether it is any poverty-related programs, health-related programs, education-related program, industry-related program, other than heavy polluting, or mega townships projects, or bullet trains, national highway, 90% is in state. All funds are distributed, all reforms they are the face of reform today. Okay, maybe they are the head of reform, the central government. The face of reform and interface is state. Please focus on that, That's why you have to really put the pressure on, because they just kindly, just pass on, all states, pass it on to the center. The buck lies with the states now. Thank you, thanks for inviting me. Sorry I took some little extra time. And then, but I wanted to share with you all this. Thank you.
Wonderful, sir, wonderful. Within 15-20 minutes with 10 slides, you were able to give the entire reform policy. I think it's a half-day workshop. We'll get back to you. One point was very good, actually. Don't go by ranking. Situation may not change. It's a well-said point. And sir, you have any policy for ease of running the family? Ease of running the family? If at all something is there, please let us know, sir. All are anxious.
It can't be faceless. Okay, so you have to face it.
President,
Okay.
sir. President, sir, I would like to call you for doing the honors. I would request the co-chair and mentor to please join. The entire committee was working for this. Okay, sir. Ravichandran, Srikanth, Pankaj. With this, we come to an end of the inauguration session. Before going to the first technical session, I would request our president to do the honors to the sponsors of the day event. I would call Mr. Kiran Kumar, Karur Vaishya Bank. I call Mr. K. Ravi to join. I would request Mr. Rishabh Jain from Tata ICSI, Mr. Venkat, Mr. Rishabh Jain. They deserve a better applause. The gold sponsors, Dr. K.S. Ravichandran, yeah, KSR and company on behalf of any representative from Lendi, India? So we move on to the ease of business entity formation. I would request Dr. K.S. Ravichandran and yeah, I think it's only Dr. Ravichandran, both of you to handle this session.
Getting started is the problem. So this technical session is about ease of business entity formation. And may I request, Ravichandran, we are going to be the, please come, coordinators only for the program. We have here Mr. Vijayta Shastri. May I request him to please come to the dais. And my friend and past president of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, Shri Nagendra Rao. Please come to the dais. And Mr. K. Ravi is there? Oh, here only. I was there. Past president of KCAA and my friend here. Before I request my friend Ravichandran to introduce, who is it? Neeraj Reddy is there. Dheeraj Reddy. Dheeraj Shetty, correct. Sorry for that. Investment advisor. In fact, when I read your Dheeraj Shetty, please be seated. When I read your name, one Dheeraj gives 3 Ds actually. He says determination, discipline, and dedication. Ds, 3 Ds. In introduction to this topic of business entity formation, I was reminded about being a director of the Karur Vaishya Bank. I was reminded about the slogan we have, growth with quality. Growth with quality. EODB, in my opinion, does not mean opening the gating conditions. Free for all, let everyone come, play. It is not so. There has to be sufficient due diligence, KYC, for the purpose of setting up a business. And in my opinion, having been in practice for about 3 decades, I have seen much water has flown in this business entity formation space, and there has been good development, good growth, good governance initiatives, which has formed the basis for running the business peacefully for years together. India is, in my opinion, it's not an yet another country, please remember this. Professor Ramesh also brought out this point. India is not an yet another country. If you remember, our Prime Minister said, 2030 we are going to be the third largest economy. In 2030 we are going to be the third largest economy and green economy. Such being the target we have set for us, one notch above and a cut above the rest. That premise is what is going to drive the gating conditions. And therefore, EODB does not mean opening of gating conditions, quality is to be ensured. And with that perspective and premise, we have experienced experts here who will share their thoughts. Before that, may I request my friend Sri Ravichandar to give a brief intro of the experts on the panel here.
So Mr. Dheeraj Shetty is an investment advisor. He is a sports enthusiast with over a decade of experience working in the US, Middle East, Singapore and India. Being a former professional tennis player, Dheeraj understands the importance of determination, discipline and dedication, as my colleague Mr. Ravichandran, Dr. Ravichandran told. So in order to be successful. Next, I welcome Mr. Vijayatha Shastri, Associate Director at Dexter Capital Advisors. Okay. Vijayatha Shastri has got 29 years work experience with leading organizations such as Taj Hotels, Metro Cash and Carry, Reliance Retail, Arvind Brands, NASCOM. He currently, TIE Bangalore, and currently since April 22 with Dexter Capital, Investment Banking and Mergers Acquisitions, and Dexter Angels. 25 plus early stage investments done in range of US dollar $100K to $200K, with a focus on working with venture capitalists, family offices, angel investors, banks, law firms and CA firms to enable investments, funding, equity and debt in startups. Expertise across hospitality, operations, retail, customer-facing roles, co-working spaces, open innovation, global sales, events and building strong alliances and partnerships. Recent stints include being the Executive Director at TIE Bangalore and lead open innovation at NASCOM, COE, IoT. Currently the Associate Director at Dexter Capital, Dexter Angels, taking care of events, alliances, outreach, investor relations and lead the debt practice. Sales, BD and building partnerships and many. Okay. He has worked in multiple cities and countries and maintained very strong trusted relationships across sectors and communities. Possesses very strong industry and investor connections. Next on the panel, I think who is not in the dais is Nihar Jambusarya. I was supposed to come here because of some mishap in his house. He could not join, but there will be a televised address, recorded address by Nihar Jambusarya. He is an immediate past president of Institute of Chartered Accountants and consultant for Reliance Industries. And he is the head for South Asian Federation of Accountants. He is in practice for nearly 27 years. He held the presidentship of ICAI in the year 21-22. He is also the member of Professional Accountants in Business Advisory Group of IFAC, International Federation of Accountants. He has represented ICAI on Integrated Reporting Council and had also been member of very important committees constituted by the Indian government and regulators relating to policy formation that include government accounting standards, advisory board and audit advisory board, both constituted by the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. He was a member of the e-commerce committee formed by the Ministry of Finance and peer review committee of the Central Board of Direct Taxes. Mr. C.S. Nagendra Rao, Council Member and past President of Institute of Company Secretaries of India. He was elected as the Central Council of the ICSI for the term 2019 to 22 and served as the Vice President of ICSI for year 2020 and President ICSI for year 2021. He is Vice President of Corporate Secretaries International Association for the year 2022. With over 25 years of experience in corporate sector, he specializes in corporate and securities laws, capital markets, transactions, business planning, mergers and acquisitions, financial restructuring, strategic investment, funds planning and arrangement. Prior to setting up the full-time practice, he has also worked in multinational companies. Next is Mr. K. Ravi, past President, KCIA, Karnataka State Chartered Accountants Association, a chartered accountant in practice for more than 3 decades, specializing in personal and corporate taxation, statutory audits, internal audits, bank audits, FCRA, liaison offices, franchisee and business models, and investment advisory services. Last but not the least, my friend Mr. Dr. K.S. Ravichandran, Managing Partner, KSR & Co., Company Secretaries LLP. He has more than 25 years of practical experience. He is a much sought after counsel for cases before the National Company Law Tribunal and National Company Law Appellate Tribunal for matters under the Companies Act and Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. He regularly appears before trademarks, tribunals, intellectual property, appellate board, debts recovery appellate tribunal, arbitral tribunal and adjudicating authorities and other tribunals and appellate tribunals and regulators. I think he has crossed 100 cases on IBC.
For the purpose of giving a 360-degree view, we have startup perspective here, which is going to be addressed by Sri Vijayta Shastri, Dexter Capital Advisors Associate Director, followed by industry perspective. We have 2 experts. One, of course, will be online, and another is my friend Dheeraj Sethi. Then we have the practitioner's perspective, coming from none other than the past president of the ICSI and also the past president of KSCAA. So we will start up with startup perspective.
Fantastic. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was a very, very long introduction given about me. Well, I really appreciate it. I felt a little bit awkward because it's so boring at times. So, good morning, everyone. How's everything going? All well? Fantastic. I attend a lot of events and I also speak at a lot of events, demo days, pitches, because it's all about startups. And to give some statistics, right? So, India is already the 3rd largest ecosystem for startups. So that's a fantastic thing, and it's also due to the brilliant support given by wonderful people in the room. And also Karnataka is number 1, though Gujarat and NCR, etc. is always claiming the title. But that's how it is. And I just want to keep it very, very simple and immersive for you folks, right? So first is, are there there are startups in the room, or are we all of us, boring CAs and lawyers and investment bankers in the room? How many startups are here? Tell me the truth. Okay, sir. Wow, fantastic. Thank God. Thank God. He's a saving grace. Are there anyone who has invested in startups? Remember that startup investing is the most riskiest asset that you can ever think of, maybe beyond even crypto. Okay. So if anyone has invested in startups here, is an angel investor, has taken certificate, fantastic, sir. I hope everything is okay with you. Fantastic, because they keep saying, right, it's the funding winter and things are slowing down. Some investors say it is a deep freeze, nothing is happening, but it's not true. There's still a lot of investments happening. So just keeping it simple, because I want to keep cognizance of time. Setting up a business or an entity, whether it's in Karnataka or anywhere else, is very, very easy now. There are a lot of ecosystem players, there are a lot of industry bodies that support, including the wonderful people at BCIC. So yes, it says like, just check if your company name is already taken. Go into the, the form, the link, set it up, register, and then just say start networking, generate your registration certificate and start doing business. So that sounds very simple and very easy. If you can go to the next slide. Yes, so I hope this is visible. So why I want to pay attention and give you all a perspective here is, remember it's not just about setting up a business. or a startup, right? You also have to do business. You also have to make money. You have to get customers. You have to survive all the various policies and regulations. So I would really encourage that many of you should also work, and I can help you with this because I'm also a part of the BCIC team, that can you work with industry bodies or associations or nodal agencies like say KDM, which stands for Karnataka Digital Economy Mission. Now they have a focus on enabling not just Bengaluru, but whether it is in Mysore or Belgavi or Hubli, they want to do a lot of work. There are some incredible programs for startups like Elevate program. There is a separate program for women in technology. There is a separate program that is there for the SC/ST startup founders. Not too many people unfortunately are aware of this. This is a phenomenal opportunity. They give funding up to 50 lakhs. And it can be 15 lakhs, it could be 30 lakhs, it can go up to 50 lakhs. And that is not a small money. Remember, this is non-dilutive equity. It is a grant. While you have to achieve certain milestones, as a startup, you don't have to give away your precious equity. And it is the most precious. Equity that a founders own is so incredibly important. So these are just some laws. These are all available on public domain. I have researched this and taken out from the startup policy of Karnataka. And if I may go to the next slide. What do you mean by startups? Right? This is very critical. I know that a lot of folks here are SMEs, their enterprises have been around for some time. So just giving a small thing about how many years should be, when should you have been incorporated, what should be your turnover. And if you pass this, you're not classified as a startup anymore. I would also encourage you all to look at a website called Startup India, Invest India, and DPIIT. If I'm not mistaken, when I last checked the website very recently, yesterday night, we have close to 1 lakh startups that have been registered in India, as per the portal run by the government of India. That's like incredible. Yes. Yeah, it's almost touching 1 lakh, right? So the clock is ticking. So it's going to touch 1 lakh. That's a phenomenal number. Just imagine that even if they employ an average of 15-20 people who are paying taxes and buying, selling and living, you're talking about millions of people who are actually identified directly and indirectly by startups. And that's the engine. That's the engine that creates. And of course, that means for all the lawyers, CAs, investment bankers and investment firms, etc., it's business that is coming in for you. So I just want to keep that. And also I've just given some definitions through the BCIC team. If anyone wants more information, more links, more than happy to make this public domain, because this is a research work that I constantly do, and this is for the ecosystem and community. So reach out anytime that you want. If I may go to the next slide. Please, the next slide if you don't mind. Okay. Now, I'm talking about Karnataka because it is done through BCIC. We're sitting in Bengaluru. We're sitting in the, the hub of startup ecosystem and innovation ecosystem. There are industry bodies. NASSCOM is there. TIE is there. I talked about KDM, the startup cell. So many incubators, accelerators, and GCCs who are doing great work, working with startups, giving them paid POCs, etc., etc. So I just want to give some kind of thought process around here that it is not just about, that you started up. There are some resources that I've shared as well. And there are a lot of programs that are going on which the Karnataka Startup Cell is doing. I would encourage you all, if you all need, again I repeat, if any of you all are interested to know what is happening with NASSCOM, what's happening with TIE, what's happening at BCIC. By the way, one of the very important part of my introduction that got missed out was that I'm the co-chair of all the initiatives that we do for startups. And I'll tell you the story also because it's an important story. I was part of TIE Bangalore when some members of BCIC reached out to us and said, can you help us? Because at BCIC we work with a lot of non-startups and we want to do more work with startups. So I didn't even know the people, but I said yes, and now I'm so grateful and honored that I'll be interacting with all you folks. Now, what else can you as people do? As experienced business leaders, and I want to emphasize on that, you all understand business. Every single one of the persons sitting on the dais here, including all of you, understand how to do business, how to work with customers, how to follow the law of the land. Too many times startups forget these very basic rules and they get into deep trouble. They say we are startup founders, we are innovators, we are doing amazing things for the country and we are bringing technology in, and they talk about AI, they talk about blockchain, they talk about all that, but ultimately I think it's very critical that as mentors, as solid people who understand and have expertise in business, work, mentor and support startup founders who are really good people doing amazing things for the country, help them also to do business. And that's so important and so incredibly necessary. If I may go to the next slide. Yes, I strongly believe that things have improved dramatically in the last few years, at least, in terms of setting up a business. While I did say that we are sitting in Karnataka and we are in Bangalore, I would also like to talk about Kerala also. They do Kerala. There's something called a Kerala Startup Mission. You all should look that up. They're great people. There's a lot of cross-border and cross-collaborative work that happens. If any of you are traveling to, say, Hyderabad, You all should go and find out if you all can go visit and meet the people at T-Hub. If anyone is going to Odisha, you all should go to O-Hub. All of these names that I have given, I have very deep relationships with all these folks. Anyone wants help to contact, meet, interact with all these people, I'm more than happy to do that, because why I'm saying this is, again, meet the startups, interact with them, see what help they want. I did mention this, not very pleasant terms about funding winter, deep freeze, etc. It is a tough challenge. As I said, we're Dexter Angels, we have done close to 30 investments. We're actively looking at Dexter Angels, and of course at Dexter Ventures also. We invest in startups, we co-invest. So what this means is, and this is important, many of you might want to put in money into startups. There are many other angel networks. There are many other micro VCs and family offices. So we all come together. We take the risk, we share the risk, we do the due diligence, and that is how we also can help these startups when they're setting up entities or they want to do business in different parts of the country or abroad through the consulates. As you all know that BCIC, I think, has got a very, very deep working relationship with about 20 odd countries and consulates and embassies. How can we also get to know more of these things? I think that would be very critical and very important. And yes, I would definitely say that look at the industrial parks that is there in Trivandrum. You should look at what the Bomanhalli industrial parks are there, etc., because there are a lot of startups who are actually doing business with these people. A lot of state governments and even the Karnataka and even the central government is giving a lot of leeway. I'm not saying compromising, but they're giving leeway to help these startups who follow all the rules, regulations, they're recognized by DPIT, etc., to do business. And very critical is when, look, we also face these issues about payment. Can they collect money on time? Because money makes the world go round. But when you're a DPIT registered startup, you're part of Startup Karnataka, you're part of Kerala Startup Mission, you're part of T-Hub, getting money also is very critical. You can get grants, you can get funding, and you can get paid by customers. So let's not forget that money does make the world go round, and who better than all you phenomenal folks in the room who understand that. So if I may go to the next slide. These are some links. Again, I would love the BCIC team to make this public. Maybe with the help of Mr. Sai, I can convert this into an article which is published by BCIC. So everything is made available for the community and for the ecosystem and folks here. So I would also encourage you all to go through some of these policies that are there by state governments and DPIT and Invest India. It's truly incredible, but unfortunately not too many know about this. If I may go to the next slide. I just want to thank every single one of you in the room. Would love to network later, and there are other phenomenal folks out here who are going to be speaking, so I just want to cut it short here. But as I said, I'm the co-chair of the BCIC Startup Committee. Thank you so much, Dr. Ravindran, for giving me this opportunity and all the management committee. And yes, stay in touch. My email IDs are there. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And not too much of personal stuff. Everything to do with startup, innovation, investment, that's what I share out to everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the patient listening. I hope I was not too boring, and have a phenomenal day and enjoy the rest of the interactions. Thank you.
Thank you. Definitely we are going to have interaction with you. And members who are here can always make use of the facilities BCIC is providing. And we have none other than Vijayta Shastri, the co-chair for the startup. So you will be able to get direct practical insights into whatever is required in this space. Moving on to the industry perspective, Rupa, can you play the speech of Sri Jambusarya? He was kind enough to send his speech despite his difficult times.
Morning everybody. Greetings from Nihar Jambusarya, and my apology for not being able to come personally and talk and interact with you at Bangalore. Because of some personal exigencies, I am unable to visit Bangalore this time. Maybe in the next seminar or conference I will make it a point to come personally. At the outset, my compliments to the expert committee of the Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce for organizing an exclusive conference on ease of doing business in India. Today, every country of the world is focusing on ease of doing business. You know how competitive is the atmosphere everywhere, and every country would like to grab opportunity of investment from foreign investors, setting up businesses and increasing the GDP of the country. And so is India also. Let me at the outset talk about what is this ease of doing business. In fact, some time back, the World Bank Group came out with a system of ranking on ease of doing business. And they have got their indexing, and there are several parameters, in fact 10 parameters in which they judge every country in terms of ease of doing business. Like setting up a business, construction permits, getting electricity, registering a company, registering a property, getting credit, investors protection, and like this a few more parameters on which they judge how best or how better or good is a country in terms of ease of doing business. I can share my experience when I was the president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India 1.5 years back, and in the current year when I am heading South Asian Federation of Accountants. Several times we were approached by the government that they want to go on improving the ease of doing business index of India, and they would like to have serious suggestions from the professional institutes, and they would like to implement them. And I remember at that time and even now, we are giving a number of suggestions. One prominent suggestion which we gave at that time, I would recall and share with you. Particularly, government said at that time that their intention is to attract foreign investment, and how best we can help a foreign investor, and what regulatory changes would be required to do that. And we looked into the various provisions and came out with several suggestions to the government. On the regulatory side, we observed that in India, it takes about 2 months' time to form a foreign company. If there is a foreign investor and he wants to form a company in India, it takes about 2 months' time, as against just 3 to 4 days time which Singapore requires. And then we studied what processes are required to register a foreign company. And we came out with several suggestions that there are many steps which can be avoided. And if these steps are done away with, the registration would be expedited. If I give one example, in India, even getting name approval is taking about 15 days time. And we suggested a process by which this time period can be reduced. Government was serious, it took action. But again, when we observe what is the impact of all these suggestions, I think certainly improvement has taken place, but it is taking place at a very slow pace. And this is required to be stepped up. If I give you examples of other suggestions, we made state-wise study that for registering and obtaining license for business, how long, for example, it takes for obtaining licenses in Maharashtra, in Andhra Pradesh, in Tamil Nadu, in various states. And whenever and wherever we found that the processes are long and they require to be curtailed, we gave a number of suggestions to the government. Government was and is serious. It is reflected in our ranking which the World Bank Group has given to India. For the 5-year period of 2018 to 22, we stood at 14th rank, whereas for the period 2023 to 2027, we are now at 10th rank. This is certainly a significant improvement, and in the last 3 to 4 years, the government has reduced 39,000 compliances, and it has reduced 3,400 legal provisions where non-compliance would attract criminal action. All these 3,400 provisions have been decriminalized, which is a very good step on the part of the government. 42 central acts were amended through Jan Viswas Bill. And these steps were taken by the government in last 2 to 3 years, which is indicating that government is very serious. Now, if I talk about my experience as a person in corporate, in my company, when I implement or see or supervise implementation of various provisions, and I will give examples of 1 or 2 or 3. For registering a company, the process was simplified and it came down to almost 6 to 7 days some time back. But again, something wrong in implementation is happening in the Registrar of Companies office, and again it takes about 20 to 25 days to register a company. Government and when we interact with bureaucrats, they always present to us certain difficulties in terms of security. And as a professional, I would always suggest that at the cost of security, we should not reduce processes. But with the help of technology, information technology has advanced so much, and today artificial intelligence provides so much of facility that if there is any default at any stage, it would be flagged very easily by AI. And government should take advantage of it and try to see that all these processes are minimized and the time taken to register a company is minimized. If I talk about another area in which we have experience is mergers and acquisitions. When two companies merge or when there is demerger, the post-merger and demerger processes are still very lengthy. About 20 to 25 processes have to be followed, which can easily be reduced to 5 to 6 processes. And again, we have given a number of suggestions to the government that these processes need to be reduced. If I give another example, even in the area of refunds, tax refunds, we have experienced that if there is a demand for past years and these demands are already stayed by the officer, when in the subsequent years refunds are due to the taxpayer, the centralized processing unit of the tax department still would adjust the past demands which are already stayed and give refund only of the balance amount, which creates difficulty for taxpayer because taxpayer has to approach CPC, centralized processing unit, make them request and show them proof that see these are the demands which are already stayed and which are in dispute before courts and therefore you should grant full refund. This takes very long time for the process to complete, and therefore government needs to take steps that wherever a system is put on autopilot, it recognizes the stays which are granted by the tax authorities officially. These are only a few examples that I have said in which one can expect from the government that if we want to attract investment from foreign countries, we need to cut down many processes which are cumbersome, which are time consuming, and which would take away a lot of energy of the investors. Instead of focusing on the business, they would be required to focus on compliances, and therefore the regulatory compliances need to be calibrated. In the end, I would like to give a few suggestions where government can make improvements. One is simplify regulations, particularly property registration regulations, stamp duty regulations, license approvals, granting of refunds. This should be simplified. Enhance infrastructure. This is again another requirement. In many states we find that information technology is not being used to the fullest extent. Whereas there are certain states which use information technology very extensively. The infra in terms of IT requires improvement. Very prompt digitalization is required to be done. Digitalization would help improvement in economy like anything, because it would cut down on various physical actions of human beings and businessmen. Investing in education and skill development. Of late, when new education policy was announced by the government, a lot of focus was given to skill development. Now actions on skill development are required to be stepped up. The theory education in schools and colleges are being given in the traditional form. Skill development is required to be incorporated to the fullest extent, because this is time of applying skill rather than applying theoretical knowledge. Improving the tax system. I talked about 2 or 3 glitches in the system. There are a few more which the government would like to do away with. So on ease of doing, I'm sure you have alternate dispute resolution, you have other topics on which thorough discussions will be held, and this will be very useful in making representations to the government, in educating the businessmen and industrialists as to where even they can take up with government on processes which can be very easily cut down without compromising on security. So these are few of my views on ease of doing business. I have shared some experiences, and I have shared some of the suggestions which we can collectively make to the government and achieve ease of doing in real sense. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was pleasure talking with you, and I would look upon an opportunity to physically come and interact with all of you. Thank you.
Friends, we are running short of time, but we have 3 interesting experts whose practical insights will be very useful. So with a request to each one of them to confine to about 5 minutes, may I request my 3D friend, Dheeraj Sethi, to share his thoughts.
Thank you, sir. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's an absolute honor and an absolute pleasure. I say this because when I look around, I see everybody experienced from or around Karnataka. I have been fortunate enough to grow up across the globe. I grew up in the Middle East, spent 12 years in the US, spent some time in Dubai and Singapore before making Bangalore my home in 2011. I also say this with a lot of confidence that I should be the one up here not to share ideas about how to make it better, but I'll give you an example of good, bad, ugly, whatever it was, my journey from 2011 to 2023, right? Before that, though, I do want to, there was a question brought up, how many people have startups here? So for all the students, aspirants, everybody in this room, if India has to go from a developing to a developed economy, we will need a lot more entrepreneurs from this room coming out. So when you're leaving this room, please take that one thing away. It doesn't matter if you're an engineer, if we are CAs, if we are CSs, if we are lawyers, everyone can have a startup, everyone can be an entrepreneur, because it is about fulfilling a need that enough people find value in. Right? So I am Dheeraj Shetty. I run a financial advisory firm, moved to India to set it up in 2011, had never lived in India in my life. So with all the red tape that you're talking about, with everything that you're talking about, I was still able to set up. I got married in this city. I've had 2 kids in this city, and 11 years later, I'm still running that business, right? That being said, could it have been faster? Could it have been easier? There's always going to be it's always greener on the other side. Can it be done? Absolutely, it can be done. Can the people sitting on the dais and me do it? Definitely not. It's those kids sitting in the back who are actually going to make those changes. So keep that in mind. It's easier to incorporate in India than most other places in the world. Bangalore is definitely on top of that list. I don't know the numbers. I've never been a numbers guy except for balance sheet numbers. That's what I'm very good at, right? So look at it from that perspective. And if you see opportunities, right, there will always be people. There could be a slowdown in funding, but I will guarantee you most of the funds have excess money right now. They cannot find trustworthy people to put that money in, right or wrong, right? So if we can provide a business, if we can provide an opportunity for the investors, you will raise the money. The one thing you will need to keep in mind is integrity. That's the one thing they are looking for, which they are unable to find. So if we, as a group here, can kind of focus on that, I believe a lot of avenues will open up from that perspective. Moving away from an advisor, our family is in the education and healthcare space, health tech space as well. That's why I said I'm also a part of a startup, sir. But from 2011 to today, things have changed a lot. A lot. The time to get it done, the licenses, the setting up is much faster. Renewals may be an issue, and who to go to may be an issue. The other thing which I feel is an issue or that we could work on is there are so many, in fact, sitting on this podium, I've heard of 4 different avenues that startups can get funded by, which honestly, being in this business for more than a decade, I had no clue. So one of the ideas for a startup can be gathering all of this information from the government of India and making it available to normal people like us, right? That's a startup opportunity right in this room right now. So I've kept it under 5 minutes. Thank you, Bangalore. Thank you, everyone here, for being a part of this journey.
It is indeed a plug and play. Dheeraj, thank you very much. And see, one message we have understood from Dheeraj is, integrity is the route to success in business. That's all. I think one sentence I will say. Funds will flow. There is no problem. Having said that, I request now Sri K. Ravi, past president of KSCAA, to say a few words on business entity formation. His thoughts.
Now the challenge is 15 minutes is what I prepared. And 5 minutes is what has been given.
Ease of doing, sir.
So I have to do what is called as a pre writing, what we did in school. What we did in school. Well, friends, good afternoon to everybody. I think lunch is coming nearer. I think probably that is the reason he wants us to finish it fast. As a chartered accountant, I think the seminar is on ease of doing business. I would say we should have something like complexity of doing profession. Because all of us are talking about how to do ease of doing business. But I think all of you will agree as professionals that it has become more and more complex for us. We don't get skilled people. We have our digital signatures sent by the client. Payment is done online. Everything is on our head. And the client, for him, it's a ease of doing business, but not for the professionals like us. I think that is one of the biggest challenges I feel. I think that is one of the reasons why most of our young professionals like chartered accountants and company secretaries going into the industry are not doing practice. Only very few of us, all senior people like us are doing practice. Anyway. Well, coming back to the heart of the ease of doing reforms in India, well, there has been a lot of rationalization, digitalization of regulatory compliances encompassing the entire business cycle from entry to exit. Now, one of the major things is, now I was just trying to see where India stands. India continues to trail in parameters such as ease of starting business, ranking is 136, registering property, rank 154, paying taxes, ranking 115, enforcing contracts, ranking 163, and it takes roughly 58 days and costs an average of 7.8% of a property's value to register it. And again, it takes 1,445 days for a company to resolve a commercial dispute through a local first instance court. These figures are longer in time and offer greater in cost than any OECD high-income economies and therefore impede wealth creation. I think these are some of the statistics given. Sometimes I also feel when we compare these rankings, somebody said rankings are not very important, how you can do the business. I feel when you do the rankings, should you not also take into consideration the population? You can't compare Papua New Guinea with a few lakh population and 1.3 billion Indians. So naturally the system has to be very robust, and this ranking, I think they should give weightage for the population also, is what I would say. Well, less said the better about the World Bank ranking. Now, coming back to some of the other aspects, like I would like to also mention to you the Jan Vishwas Amendment of Provisions Bill 2022 was introduced in the Lok Sabha on December 22, 2022. It amends 42 acts to decriminalize certain offences, reduce the compliance burden on individuals and businesses, and ensure ease of doing business. The bill converts several fines to penalties, meaning that court prosecution is not necessary to administer punishments. It also removes imprisonment as a punishment for many offences. I think these are some of the aspects which the government is taken. This is still yet to be passed in the become a law. But this is what they do. Now, coming back to being a professional, I also was the president of the former president of the FKCCI. We always talk about sections, points, comma is not there, that is not there. But we find the IMs putting pictures, the way they talk. We are, we are very different. We are like this, they are like this. Now, coming back to the allotment of land to KDB, we also always have the single window agency. This single window agency, which is chaired by the industries minister, they give allotment of land and to the various industries who the applicants from even foreign countries. What happens is they say it is a single window agency, but I always say there's a multiple windows inside. Once you get in, they say allotment of land, then you go to KIDB. In KIDB, I do not know how much you know about KIDB or BBMP. You know, they say land is not there. Then they will say come again. So ultimately, at the end of the day, the ease of doing business is a single window agency becomes a multiple windows, and it's going to be very tough. Forget Indians. We can always tell them, well, you see, it's very tough. But when it comes to foreigners, they don't like it. Now, coming back to the income tax, the faceless assessment, online filing, everything is very nice. But many a times, you know, many of our things which have been filed with the department, nothing is taken into cognizance, and assessments are done very, I would say, bad assessments are done. We have been representing to the government saying, find out how many appeals are lodged by the department. That is very, very important, because we find majority of the assessing officers are good, but there are plenty who also do bad assessments. This is another area where we also, as professionals, have to look into this. Then I would also want to talk about last mile connectivity. So we have a system, we have online, we file the papers, everything is done. Have you got a approval from the Pollution Control Board or from the fire department? Everything is fine. The last mile, there's a disconnectivity. Not connectivity, disconnectivity. This disconnectivity is that you have to go there, you have to look into he will say this paper is not there, that paper is not there. Now, well, ease of doing business is very nice. Now, the government, the last mile connectivity is where the problem is, and the people down the line. And when we talk to the people at the helm, they understand that, but they could do little, though there is a lot of improvement, I think that there is a sort of improvement in the system, and I'm sure it will happen much, much more. I think this time's up. I will not, probably I'll take the balance 10 minutes sometime later. Thank you very much.
BCIC is going to give credit to him for two purposes, making it lively, plus the credit for the 10 minutes balance. Business entity formation is a very interesting topic, and we have none other than our past president, Sri Nagendra Rao, my friend, and a very erudite professional. I don't think anything is to be said now. He has gone there.
I know 2020 is around, so time already started. Very good morning, good afternoon. I don't know, it would be 12 o'clock now. The topic which has been given to me is with regards to the entity formation. The first and foremost, before I start, whenever as a practitioner, the moment ease of doing business comes, I get a goosebumps to understand really whether it will be ease of doing business or is there any other hidden thing which will come up, for example, into inverted commas PMLA. As a practitioner, when I think about an incorporation of a company today, I have to not only see just simply incorporation, but also what would be its impact from the PMLA point of view, because I don't know what is the intention of a promoter to start a particular company. But I would first start with, when we talk about the ease of doing business from a practitioner point of view, when you talk about a client comes to you, the first and foremost today, I am not criticizing nor I am favoring the government, but what I am trying to say is, the first thing is when a client comes to you, you are in a fix as a practitioner, what commitment should I give? Whether it will be incorporated in 2 days, whether it will be incorporated in 10 days, 15 days, a month, 2 months, God knows. Because today we are all depending upon a system. And system today, with God's blessing, whoever has got the tender, I would again not take the name of the company, is erratic. I don't know in a minute how it will function. Today at 12 o'clock, ಯಾವ ಮುಹೂರ್ತ ಇದೆ, ಗುಳಿಕಾಲ ಇದೆಯಾ, ರಾಹುಕಾಲ ಇದೆಯಾ, ಯಮಗಂಡ ಕಾಲ ಇದೆಯಾ, ಆ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತ್ರ ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Sorry, I am speaking in Kannada. So you feel that what is this happening? I have just saved the form. After 2 minutes, I have put in 1 lakh incorporation, it is showing 10 lakhs. After some time, I am trying to download, it is not downloading. I am trying to download some other company form comes. I don't know. So the first and foremost is commitment to the client. I can't commit to the client that I will incorporate a company in X number of days. So that is the first hit, and because of which you will find that you will be in a trouble, because no client probably will think 10 times, so X company who incorporates a company, it takes only 3-4 days, and why you are going to take 10 days, 15 days, because you don't know. And I am sure the data what I am having, few online filing companies have already closed their doors so far as few months are concerned with regards to the name as well as the incorporation of the company. Point number 2, when we talk about a system, ease of doing business, you have SPICE form, you have the SPICE Part B form. When you talk about the SPICE Part B form, I am again just telling the way in which the ministry could have come, just put one digital signature, that's the end of it. Here, you have to put one digital signature here, the second digital signature in some other form, third digital signature in the fourth form, and you have to upload all the forms. When you are uploading, all the forms says hi, yes, like thumbs up over here, says DSC verified. But when you file, you will find one of the form is not uploading. I am to say DSC verification failed, and all the other forms, the same system, the same digital signature, you affix it, and the error is that you cannot file the form. Then the second thing is, as a professional, it is not necessarily only a company secretary or chartered accountant. We also don a hat of a technologist. We do some trial and error to see that DSC, we have to change the PIN, change the password of the DSC, and automatically it starts working. So you don't know exactly how the system is working. For the ease of doing business, first and foremost, what I think is, whatever present the system is there, let the government make that system work efficiently, effectively. All other recommendations which the Institute of Company Secretaries of India or the other professional sister bodies gives, the ministry can take its own time to ensure that these particular suggestions, recommendations are given, are followed in letter and spirit. The problem is, presently, whatever recommendations are given, technocrats are the people who are preparing the forms, who are neither the professional or probably they understand, don't understand its implication. I will just take a 30 seconds more. I know time is up. Since the system is being developed by the technocrat, you will find that the professional also have to be along with them. Otherwise, the system will never work. System, whatever it may be, and government cannot give if you have given 30 days time, 60 days time, X number of days, the system should be allowed, any professional should be allowed to file within that particular time limit. No professional wants any extension of time. No professional wants to pay any additional filing fee out of from their clients or from their own pocket. What they require is simple ease of doing not only the business for their clients, but also relaxing and doing work for what they are paid, so, and they do not spend unnecessary time. One data I had asked the ministry, which I'm still unable to receive, that always ministry says 16,000 companies have been incorporated on this month. I fail to understand for this 16,000 company, how much attempts have been made for those incorporation, because every day, because I have practically seen how the system works. If you go to MCA, one single CSG 9 form, if you have edited 10 times, all 10 forms are available at the portal. I want to know from the ministry that how many attempts are being made by our professional, maybe a CS or a CA, to know how much number of quality time they have spent for the purpose of filing one simple form of maybe a name or maybe for the incorporation. I know time is up. Thank you very much. Maybe on another given day, I could speak much more.
It's a wonderful session we had, starting with Vijayata Shastri and Nigar Jambuswarya, Dheeraj Sethi, my friend, and Nagendra Rao K. Ravi. It's a wonderful session, business entity formation. I thought I'll wind up by saying that. Business entity formation, I thought I'll wind up by saying that. Two things we should, gentlemen, remember. Tsunamis, earthquakes, and floods and whatever, including the global COVID pandemic, has proved to be a temporary affair. Therefore, the glitches that we are currently experiencing with for a formation of LLPs and companies in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, I believe, with a positive belief, that will be also very temporary, and very soon we will be able to get things going. And to end up on a positive note, last about 10 days back, I was with the Minister of Education in the Maldives, and he was telling me that within about 1 week, that is probably in the last week, a delegation from the institute, including Sajjad Saab, ICAI, has been invited there to set up the systems. That means we have a robust system. Please understand, we are now in a position to globally advise other countries to set up systems for them. And with that positive note, I request Om to do the honors.
C.S. Nagendra D. Rao. I would request Pankaj Jain to please come and do the honors. Mr. Dheeraj Sethi. I would request Venkatakrishnan, please come and do the honors. Mr. K. Ravi. Mr. Vijayata Shetty. Ramprasad, please. So how was the session? I know few people had gone for tea, coffee. There is no action replay. However, we will try to, if at all get the recordings, we will try to move on. Now we will move to the next session. Before the lunch, people should stay. We are not going to start the lunch only after the session is over. Now we move on to the next session. Simplification of approvals and commencement of business. I would request Dr. Srikanth Patsarthi, an international arbitrator, to take over the situation.
Thank you. It is a delight. May I kindly request Professor Ramkumar Kakani to kindly accompany me onto the dais, and Mr. Mahesh Murthy as well, and Mr. Ravichandran Natarajan.
We request Mr. B.R. Indushekar, Director Real Estate, Volvo Groups of India, to do the keynote address for this session.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and the dignitaries on the dais. First and foremost, my thanks to Dr. Ravindran, the BCIC team. Happy to be here, part of this ease of doing business. You know, I'm a manufacturing guy. And typically at shop floor, we would look at, say, how do we make sure that the manufacturing processes are put in such a way that anyone on the line will be able to do that within the specified time. So maybe we call that as whatever, takt time. If you need to roll out whatever 300 vehicles or 400 vehicles that comes out of Toyota, maybe every minute a vehicle needs to come out. So that's the takt time. So when you need to do that, what kind of process you need to make sure that they're there so everybody is synchronized, everybody is able to do that then and there, so the product comes out qualitatively. Same way, if I try to articulate, a lot of things have happened in India, but we still need to do many more things, whether to move from 3 trillion to 5 trillion or to 10 trillion. There are some of these things that the government part of it is continuously looking at that, how do we improve. So these platforms like Bangalore Chamber of Industry Commerce or CII or many more, they would be the ones who would continuously work with the government agencies. And one thing that, you know, anything change in terms of the provision, the law, or the amendments, I think we are equally responsible to go and give them, hey, you make this clause change, and perhaps it would increase the revenue of this particular sector, or it would make sure that so many people get the jobs. Because government always looks at how much they would get in turn in terms of the taxes and how many people can get jobs. So lots of work has happened on that front, but I think in our back-end shop floor, we would say continuous improvement, through application of some of the tools, suggestions, etc. Maybe the same thing needs to happen here. We need to be more and more closer to the government agencies, maybe helping them out what it would really mean. And that would propel the ease of doing business approach. Last week we were actually representing CII. We were doing this roundtable at Belgaum, okay? And when we were trying to do that, we said, hey, we don't want to speak, but then the audience, you tell us what needs to be done so that we could improve on 3 of those. Somebody came up with some, we have these flights to Belgaum, just about 2 flights in a day. We need more, okay? So somebody talked about road connectivity, somebody talked about the power, etc. So individual grievances doesn't really do good, but collectively, what is important for the industry becomes very important, okay? So in my view, most of the things have already been spoken by the earlier panel in terms of, and including the gentleman who came on the video, whatever rank we are in India, and what are the things that have happened and what needs to be done. Yep, they're all there. But that all needs to be done by us and with the good engagement with the government agencies. And I would only say, if we need to make sure that things need to happen, it is within us. So we need to be more and more engaged with them, show them the business case, show them what, if done, will bring that change. So with that, my friend, hand it over to you, and you have a wonderful session. Take care and all the best.
Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Indushekar, we request you to please join the panel.
If you may, we would love to hear more from you.
I just spoke.
It is indeed an honor to be in this dais where the stalwarts have spoken. I would first start as a moderator for this particular session. It is my privilege to introduce the panel to you. We are joined by Professor Dr. Ramkumar Kakani, Ram as he prefers to be addressed. He is the director at the Indian Institute of Management, Raipur, and on a sabbatical from the Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode. Ram started as a technocrat in the corporate sector and moved towards the academic world, focusing on finance performance strategy. Earlier, Ram was a faculty at XLRI Jamshedpur and LBS NAA, as we know, the Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy, which produces the civil servants of the world, of India, producing it to the world. We have sent our Sherpa to G20. Abroad, he has worked as an academic in Denmark, Singapore, Nigeria, and UAE. Ram's current consulting includes the world's largest careerist senior civil services. Ram's past consulting clients list includes one of the largest agriculture equipment manufacturers, the Planning Commission of India, 2005, and one of India's most trusted business groups, which was in 2020, and one of the largest public sector crude oil giants, 2021. Lately, Ram has moved towards a leadership domain to explore socially impactful initiatives aimed at public administration, including holding the role of the director of the Government of India's NCLDCA. Ram has co-authored books with publishers ranging from Cambridge, Sage to Routledge. His textbooks with McGraw-Hill on corporate finance and financial accounting run into multiple editions. Ram hopes to consolidate his learning by merging his cross-functional insights in business and financial analysis, governance, public policy, and leadership development, and make life more meaningful. Indeed, a pleasure to have you, sir. Then moving to the venture capitalists amongst us. Of course, I know for a fact that Professor Ram has also invested in startup. However, the serial entrepreneur amongst us. Mahesh Murthy, venture capitalist, entrepreneur, marketer, and policy with a diverse range of achievements. He helped Jeff Bezos design and launch Amazon.com globally. And I'm sure not a single person in the startup world would not actually know him. He won a Best Young Director at Cannes, launched MTV across India, He was the one who launched MTV across India and then launched and ran its rival channel V across South Asia till its sale to Star TV. If you could give me one moment, please. As an entrepreneur, Ramesh has built India's leading private space company, which has launched 5 satellites and is a leader in the space data analytics. Ramesh has also built South Asia's leading independent digital marketing firm, Pinstorm. We have a Elon Musk amongst us, perhaps. As an investor, I'm just livening the moment. As an investor, Mahesh was named India's best venture capitalist twice by limited partners investing in VC funds. Mahesh has also starred as a key investor and judge in earlier versions of Shark Tank. Business Bazigar on ZTV, The Entrepreneur on ET Now, and The Pitch on Bloomberg TV. Mahesh has helped, Mahesh was part of the original team, just to ensure a little bit of brevity and laconic summary. He was part of the original team of TIE. So Vijeta, if you're amongst us, it's up your domain. Mahesh has helped shape India's space policy, TRICE policy on disallowing Facebook free basics in India, Maharashtra's policy allowing startups to bid for government business, Delhi State's communication and networking policy, and advises the UAE government on how to make them more attractive for VCs and startups. There's a list of activities and I would say experiences that Mahesh has, which runs into a considerable number of pages, but his education is from the Oxford University as well as Osmania University. We will get into the details of that as and when we move along. Then, we are joined by Mr. B.R. Indushekar, who we just heard in the opening speech or the keynote. He is a director of real estate of Volvo Group India. Overall work experience of 30 years, over 30 years, worked in industrial engineering, manufacturing, engineering, fabrication shop, productivity projects, sales and marketing, complete operations, including finance, IT, and HR. There's not even one department that you have not been in, sir. And it is indeed a privilege. Worked as a manufacturing engineer in Shippensburg, USA, certified Six Sigma belt from CII, certified lean leader TPS GPS from Gifu, Japan. Thank you very much, sir. And last but far from being the least, we have Mr. N. Ravichandar, a chartered accountant with 4 decades of experience in the fields of accounting, auditing, treasury, taxation. He has independently handled aspects of fundraising, both short-term and long-term, ECB, SECD, NCD, masala bonds, including taxation aspects. He has represented and interacted with various government departments like CBIC, CBDT, DGFT, DGTD, and Ministry of Industry at the state, central and the state level. Was in the CII advisory panel on VAT for the government of Karnataka. Was involved in 2 startups as a CFO of an EOU and secretary right from scratch, including a EOU where he was a CFO, and we know the amount of complexity that an EOU has as a CFO, and secretary right from scratch. It is a privilege to be joining such an illustrious panel. Just a footnote in the panel, I'm a barrister, and I've known Professor Kakani and Mahesh for some time. Mahesh, quite recent acquaintance, but Professor Kakani, Ram, for a long time now. And of course, we have been interacting with Mr. Ravichandran Rajan. Let me get to the question and get to the meat of it. About the ease of doing business, and we've been talking about how India has perhaps performed gloriously. However, if you take a drill down on the statistics, Being a numbers person, and we are joined by academia as well as industry, we have registered the lowest increase from the ease of doing business from 2019 to 2020. I'm indexing ourselves to the last reported one, which was discontinued therein. In the area of getting approvals, while we have fared quite well on the overall scores, in the area of getting approvals and in the area of the license Raj that we seem to be having, we have fared what the data suggests that it's just a 0.6% improvement. What would be your thought process or viewpoints on that? If I may start with Mahesh first, moving to Mr. Indushekhar and then Professor Kakani and then.
Thanks, Srikanth. Hi all. It was good sitting through the earlier session of CAs talking about regulatory barriers. Pardon my levity, but if you were to ask a group of crematorium operators how to reduce the death rate, they'd say, yes, sir, it's a good thing, but hamara dhanda kyun le rahe ho? Similarly, asking CAs to reduce regulations, like, come on, you're पेट पे लात क्यों मार रहे हो यार? So it's hard to believe too many CAs have a deep interest in reducing regulation, but that's anyway. I'm reminded when I was an employee a long time ago, I used to work in India and we used to get 8 or 10 allowances to reduce tax. Those were the days of peak 54% tax rate. And then I moved to Hong Kong and they gave me a salary and I said, okay, I need to meet a accountant and tax lawyer. We don't have that. What do you mean? He says, no, how do I reduce the tax? He says, tax is 12%, everybody pays tax. What's wrong with you, right? So I think that's really what happened. When you have a tax rate of 54%, you find a bunch of professionals whose business model is to reduce the tax. And when you take away the problem, those professions don't exist. So, sorry, apologies about all that. So, the issue out here is really that you asked about, where exactly do we stand? I think the gentleman who came on video said, India is now 10th, we were 14th. I just want to put a footnote. India is now 10th out of 17th. We were 14th out of 17th in Asia, right? We are not even in the top 50. I doubt we're in the top 70 in the world. So that EIU report of BER, it only pertains to Asia. So I think somebody has to put a footnote. It's just saying India is now first in the Indian subcontinent, right? But you have to kind of specify the context where you're putting the rankings because, there's a huge amount of misinformation going on there, right? I think the key point you have to understand about reducing regulation and bureaucracy is that there is the role of bureaucracy is to ensure an income for bureaucrats. All right, if you take away bureaucracy, unka paisa kahan banega? So if you are able to solve that problem, then bureaucracy will go. The reason why it's not moving is because, with every single regulation out there, somebody has to be paid a salary or paid under the table to overcome that regulation. So it's really a point of, you may have any kind of political will to reduce the number of regulations, but unless people up and down the line get a proper salary or income, it's not really going to go away. Right? I think the problem is not about a lack of will to undo regulation. The problem is everybody understands from top to bottom that, look, I invested in a microbrewery. For each outlet we had to set up, we needed 73 different permissions. All right. Even after doing all that, we had what is called a compliance bill of 5 lakhs a month. After finding out what it is basically what we had to pay the policemen every month, right? So, if you have that, your highest paid employee is a local police station, right? You have to worry about the fact, it is about money. Finally, it's not about a will to change, etc. Right? I think the point is, we talked about startups and entrepreneurships. I've funded maybe 65, 70 startups, something of that sort. A couple of dozen are from my own pocket. I think there are still issues. I remember a startup we set up in 2000 and we stopped operations in 2002. Finally, it took till 2016 to close the company. It took 14 years to shut a company which had no business for 14 years. And each of those 14 years, we had to, hire a chartered accountant to file the accounts of the company and pay the chartered accountant. We could not pay anybody else. So, right? I don't have any animus towards the CA profession, but I think, it's a little odd to kind of, ask crematorium operators how to reduce the death rate. So, if you look at where we are in the world in terms of where money is coming and where it's going, I mean, I did take some, I want to name a list of countries, right? So, Saudi Arabia, Bulgaria, Chile, Kosovo, Kenya, Romania, Morocco, Hungary, Montenegro, Croatia, Rwanda, Slovenia, Azerbaijan, Turkey, Kazakhstan. These are all companies which it's, according to the World Bank, easier to do business in than India, right? So it's not just Mexico, right? As of the current world rankings, right? So I want to say that we can have any WhatsApp forward and, you know, the uncle community will say, yes, India is great, but truth be told, we are not in a great position. I think most foreign investors know that. We have a tendency to roll back regulations, which is political. We understand that. I mean, I'm not from Karnataka, but I do understand when the new government just came in here, it said all contracts given under the old government are null and void. You know, I can imagine poor FIIs saying, what am I supposed to do right now? All right? So which state am I supposed to work with? I cannot work with a state unless I know that particular party is going to be in power for the next 4 years. Otherwise, you know, by the time I get a grant, it will be cancelled by the next government. All right. So I think it finally comes down to the issue of money in the chain. If your chain of bureaucrats and politicians is not particularly compensated well, then your regulations become a victim of wherever wherever they need to get compensated. All right. So it's not about so much of will. We can have all charts and we want to get better and so on and so forth. In fact, even the report, you talked about the fact that the world business ease rankings have been cancelled. The reason they were cancelled is because China and India were trying to fix it. And then finally, the lady who was running it, she became the head of IMF. She got sacked. And then finally, they said the report entirely is null and void because it's completely rotten to the core. So yeah, sure, we might have improved in the rankings, but you have to put a little footnote there saying the report has been cancelled because of whatever reason.
But Mahesh, just follow up on that. Without getting all gloomy, is there a single good thing that you would like to talk about?
That we are talking about it on stage. It's a good thing, right? I mean, if we are talking about it, it means there's a recognition there is a problem.
True.
No, I'm not a critic or anything. I'm saying, look, I've been in India now. I came back from the US about 24 years ago. You take the good with the bad, and the only way to exist here is with a healthy sense of humor, right? You can delude yourself, you can say, you can laugh and say, well, this is the price of getting business done. You get business done. It's simple. Like somebody said, look, this is India, we're a large country, 1.4 billion people. It is just as difficult doing business in China. I opened a few companies in China and I got looted. And I couldn't do anything. I had to smile and say, because somebody from the party stole the money, there's nothing I can do. You have to smile and say, that's the cost of doing business, right? So I'm not being critical. I'm saying you just have to have a healthy sense of humor and acceptance of the reality of that is what it is. Right?
Just to clarify, Mahesh, I didn't mean it as a pejorative, it's just a
no
to that. Indushekar sir.
Yeah.
Would you have a contrarian view or would you have a supporting view?
Well, he came from a startup and whatever the experiences thereof. But my view is, 1998, maybe the Golden Quadrilateral project started, the National Highways Authority of India. We as infrastructure development, we are very closely associated. We produced equipments for the NHAI. So the recent Bangalore-Mysore highway which got opened up, okay? Maybe the kilometer was just about 130 or 140 kilometers, but then the land acquisition itself was a very huge challenge. So the projects in India generally, they're all overrun because of the, something like this, land acquisition, getting the properties, whatever the farmers, how do you compensate them, etc. But with all that, things keep moving. So it could have been done perhaps 20 years ago, 25 years ago, yeah. But then we are all able to witness the progress. So to me, it is a new India. It is something that we all collectively have that responsibility and accountability to move the needle very rapidly. So my view is, again, I come back to these associations and forums, and how do we make sure that collectively we make that huge impact to the various ministries. And they are open. They are certainly open. Today we are missing Gunjan to be here. Otherwise, people like Gunjan, Gaurav, Gupta, they are all made a significant, any representation that goes from the industry forum. They were able to understand it, and they were always there to say, hey, we will do this. and that it was put in shape. So it is changing. It is changing for the good. All we have to do is make sure that, build on that momentum and do the quantum leap. I'm a believer in it.
Just a follow-up on that, sir.
Yeah.
So, Gunjan Krishna IAS was not able to join us
Yeah.
because there is a new cabinet, which is
Yep.
perhaps supporting Mahesh's view.
Yep.
There's a new cabinet in place, and she's there over there. That's the reason why she was not able to join us. Just a follow-up on that.
Yeah.
Do you think manufacturing has more of a bitter taste than a services entity? Because you come from Volvo,
Yeah.
and you've seen everything
Yeah.
from the shop floor. Would you say that manufacturing typically has a rough time?
Well, if you take the numbers, perhaps people would get a feel, yeah, the services sector is growing much more than the true manufacturing. But without manufacturing, the services can never grow. Okay, maybe this is some kind of a interim that happens, but manufacturing per se would be able to get more capex, okay, more employment that it can generate, and the entire chain gets energized. You put up, let's say Volvo puts up another company. It's not just Volvo. Along with Volvo, you have got another 500 supply chain companies. Then you have the dealers and all that stuff. So that is what we always look at, the entire chain that really gets, expanded through the manufacturing. So manufacturing will play a significant role in India's GDP. We're all together pushing for it, at least somewhere to 25%. We are currently around 16, 17%. It will happen, 25% will happen, and that is the only way. The rest of the other sectors also will support for that, whatever, 5 trillion, 10 trillion, whatever. Yep.
Mahesh, I'm going to come back to you
Yep.
on this particular question.
Yep.
Ram sir. Yeah. I'm not going to ask whether you have a contrarian or a supporting view, but it is more of, would you have a viewpoint in this, considering that you have seen both sides of the world?
So, if we, to be honest, I'd put it this way that, Mahesh, I've spent fair amount of time with Indian Administrative Service officers. I've shadowed them, I've shadowed IPS officers. I've also spent fair amount of time with others. So, first and foremost, regarding the question, there are 3 to 4 places wherein there is a bottleneck. First is enforcing contracts. When it comes to enforcing contracts, the nation definitely doesn't stand in comparison to many other places, especially non-democratic places where democracy is more kind of only for the namesake, or city-state economies like Singapore, which are very small and wherein the complexity and diversity of a massive nation are not there. So in that sense, strictly speaking, we can't compare a large, humongous, complex and diverse nation like India with others. Where we fall low, and which is where I fully agree with Mahesh, is one is enforcing contracts, second is registering property. These are 2 places. For example, there is enough data to say that to register a property, it takes 154 days. And it takes 58 days, I'm sorry, and it takes about 7.8% of property value. But for an entity, I'm talking for a company, I'm not talking for a residence purpose. Similarly, when we talk of enforcing contracts, if there is a commercial dispute between a company and some other party, the data says it takes 1,445 days to resolve in a local court. That's 4 years. Yeah. So in that sense, 2 to 3 places we seem to be lacking. One is, see, what Mahesh's point was, the social infrastructure of the nation possibly is not up to the mark. It will take time, and I'm sure we are improving. Already our ranking, as you pointed out, has moved from about 130 odd to 67, and I guess the data says, and we need to carry on the momentum out there. If you ask me, are the bureaucrats the hurdle points? My sense is not the key decision maker out there, not the principal secretary or someone else out there. But what happens is, they also, it takes fair amount of time for them in a democracy to tell the courts to quickly process it. Even if the political system wants to do it early, or even if the bureaucrat wants to do it early, changing the mindset of the people, changing the mindset of the supporting civil services that are there, whether it is police or something else, will take time. And a fair amount of, you can say, hurdle in India is also coming from the courts and the law, the way the law gets implemented and the law gets executed and interpreted, especially places like Kerala and Bengal, etc. You would agree that things become far more complicated because everything gets debated, discussed also. So I would put it this way, that it possibly just needs the momentum to carry on. We got great support. Yeah, one point which is a very valid point, which both of my colleagues pointed out, especially Mahesh, is that whenever the political process changes, typically it's like, I want to reinvent each and everything, and hence that reinventing the wheel shouldn't happen. Fine, I may be a Maharashtra, I may be a different government from the government of India, but this is something which I guess it's more to do with the Indian mindset, wherein one collector goes, another collector comes, he also tries to kind of honestly, Mahesh, here I would put it this way, that I think IAS officers, especially some of the dedicated lots, are bonded laborers for the nation, wherein their actual enormous amount of effort doesn't get recognized. I'm telling, out of 100, about 55 to 60. That's all.
Just to follow up on that, so the center-state divide that exists, can we categorically say that apart from judiciary, that is a choke point, so to speak, because the political changes that happen at the state level are far more, at least the past 10 years has indicated that they are far more turbulent than the center. So would you say that as a state, you should be more conscious, or you should be having a R correlation more with the state politics rather than the center's politics? Because we have been debating from morning about how ease of doing business and how single window clearance and so on and so forth. And we are talking about India. We are not talking about Karnataka, or we are not talking about Kerala, or we are not talking about West Bengal. So do you think that can change?
So here, I think I'd put it this way, that very proactive government, I'll give you an example here. Government of Odisha, Naveen Patnaik, if you got a single political leader who understands how to pick the right bureaucrats and give them the power or things out there, if you observe the way Odisha has been changing, even though they have a difference of opinion with the central government, yet if you observe on the field, it is fantastically been managed well in the last 15 years. So much so they are now out of that Bimaru category also. There is this term for underdeveloped states in India known as Bimaru, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, etc., etc. So they are out of it because of the kind of, you can say, the way, see, it's a regional party, it fights for its own cause, yet at the same time, they don't pick up contests with the center just for the heck of, let's say, hurting their own selves.
True. If I can add to that, right? I think historically we've always been a federal country where the states have always had a certain amount of autonomy. For example, Karnataka was very good to the services industry, the IT services industry 20, 25 years ago under Vijay and other people back then. And a lot of what we see today, including the development and the traffic jams, whatever part, is due to the fact that we were always federal. And in that system, the states obviously should have a greater say. Where I think what Ram says in some ways works in theory is this, but it also works against. For instance, if you take the fact that one particular industrial group went and bought every airport in India. How did they do that? They sent the ED and said, okay, I'll open a case against you or you sell it to this man. So mergers and acquisitions now involve the government in a very different way, depending on where your politics or policies are aligned. So at that point, what can a state government do? Now, obviously, in one particular case, many state governments wanted the incumbent owner of the airport to stay there, but you can't, again, fight against the center. So you can say the state is unnecessarily picking a battle against the center, or you can maybe say it's the other way around. All right? So I think the point is that in a proper federal system of government, it has always worked fine. It has worked fine in Karnataka for the last 25 years. It is when actually, everybody sees that, the center is actively intervening. That's when things start getting, So if you look at it, Tamil Nadu has had transfer of power between two parties for the last 30 years. True. But industry has not stalled. Because none of those cases the central government intervened. And for whatever reason, both the parties had this simple agreement saying, look, what you do, that's fine. It'll carry on. When I come in, I will do my stuff. I'll take a part of yours, you take a part of mine, whatever it is. But it worked. It worked. It has worked for 35 years under two different parties which alternate power in Tamil Nadu. But when the center comes in, at that point, which is, look at the extraordinary investment in automotive in Tamil Nadu. It is because for whatever it is, there is a sense of stability. If X doesn't come, Y will come. Don't worry. Both of them are very commercial minded. We'll settle with both of them. All right? Now, I'm talking as a business person, right? I'm sorry, I'm not talking very official CAEs or something. This is the reality on the ground. Yeah? Sorry, back to you.
No, you're absolutely right in the sense that, it's a cohesive development that should happen. I mean, the businesses have a choice to move between the different states, and it's literally like a supermarket. You can literally go and shop with different states and see which state is offering you the best. Just like Detroit did that.
So in fact, I'll add to that. Last year, I brought the Dubai Minister of AI. By the way, Dubai has a Minister of Artificial Intelligence. All right. I brought him to India to speak at the TICON Mumbai. And, he basically went and spoke and said, so like you're talking about companies, I'm talking to the entrepreneurs out here, right? So before that, he had a meeting, and he's like, somewhere here in Bangalore itself, Mr. Murthy, what will it take to get all these entrepreneurs, good of them, I want them to come to Dubai. So, a bunch of us said this. Oh, visa, okay, no problem. And then he said, by the way, say 4 months ago, some Ukrainian company wanted us to help them with visas. We helped them with visas. So I said, what did you do? Oh, they wanted 63,000 residency visas. I said, what do you do? We issued them in 1 day. They can issue 63,000 residency visas in 1 day. All right? So when it comes to this, and their policy is very simply, how can I make it favorable for the entrepreneur to come here? And they offer no subsidies, nothing. So in fact, I was telling that one of my companies, a space company, the British government reached out and said, yeah, you know what, if you move this to the UK, I'll give you £250,000 is a grant, and we'll give you all blah, blah, XYZ visas and so on and so forth. And I was telling this same minister, and he said, Mr. Murthy, we have never given subsidy. What we do is very simple. We have one policy. You have wife, your wife is very happy in Dubai. We make it best place for you to live, security, everything fine. After that, you make money, don't make money, your problem. Right? So they've come down to the fact that I've made it a great place to live. So if you look at the exodus today, I spend half my month in Dubai, in UAE. I meet more Indian entrepreneurs in Dubai in a month than I meet in Bombay in a year. All right? It really does take a week to open a company, 2-3 weeks to open a bank account. Once it's done, and I'm telling you, I've got 3 of my companies open there. It's strange. We actually don't have accountants because there are no taxes. If there's no tax to be paid, what do I need accounting for? I just have to basically keep track of the business.
But again, Mahesh, the situation is, of course, changing.
No, I'm not comparing. All I'm saying is, finally, when it comes down to it, there are entrepreneurs in this room. And it's competitive. You're talking about starting up. Each of these entrepreneurs here has a choice. Should they open their business in Karnataka, in Singapore, in Hyderabad, in Dubai, wherever? They will go where they have a combination of either support or quality of life or market or access to market. And it's not just an Indian choice they have to make. They have a choice between multiple cities in the world they can go to.
True.
Right? Today, in fact, it is shorter to fly from Dubai to Bombay than it is to fly from Cochin to Delhi. Actually, it takes less time door to door.
True.
Right? So, and Singapore isn't that much further away. So it is not just national competition that we should be looking at. If you want to talk to the entrepreneurs room, they're sitting here and saying, I can go to any place in the world. Why should I necessarily only pick between Bangalore and Bombay, or Bombay and Hyderabad, or Hyderabad and Chennai? So we are not just in danger of losing our entrepreneurs to another state. We are in danger of losing to other countries.
True. Uh, let me come back to you, Mahesh, on that particular point. Indushekar sir, we talked about subsidies, and now with the FAME subsidy, and you're in mobility, but of course that's a different kind of mobility. Do you think the point that Mahesh made, which is subsidy versus ease of doing business, would you prefer subsidies rather than ease of doing business, or is it a dichotomy between the two? Is it a dichotomy? That's a question. It's a loaded question. It's a dichotomy. If it is not a dichotomy, do clear, conscious choices exist between ease of doing business and the initiatives that could be done by the regulator versus subsidies? Subsidies are just cherry on top of the cake.
Well, subsidies is actually, I would say, something extremely sad in the business. Extremely a component which is not really the right one from a business perspective. Okay. So subsidy has its own, both pros and cons of it.
True.
So what we are talking is, while it's important for us to know what's happening, what is India with respect to the rest of the countries, etc., it gives us a measure. Where do we stand? And then India has its own culture, DNA, okay? And change also takes a lot of effort. So when we talk about ease of doing business in very specific changes that needs to happen, it is about how you are able to justify those things. And perseverance is a matter. Let me tell you this, when Modi and the Japan Prime Minister Abe, I'm told, I have read that and then somebody told me also, they were doing this puja in Varanasi, okay, the Ganga lamp lighting. And it was going on 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. And Abe said, Mr. Modi, do you need a bullet train? Okay, so Modi said, yeah, we still need it. But you guys keep on doing this continuously, 3 times, 4 times. Okay, so that means you have a lot of time. So when you have so much of time, do you need bullet train? So, but Modi had something to say, that we have 1.4 billion people, we want to transport them quickly, very quickly. Okay. So by transporting them quickly, there is a big revenue that we can generate. So, see, these things will keep coming back to the governance. We might look at government as, has so many things to do, but I also want to say that industries and entrepreneurs have also a big laundry of list that we'll need to do. We can't blame everything to government. Absolutely not. Like let's say for Volvo to develop a new product, perhaps it takes 2 to 3 years to come out with a prototyping and then put the product into the market. So similarly, when government is trying to put some big process, a major change, that also would, would take so much amount of time and with so much of bureaucratic process. When the rest of the world was struggling on, the typical system of collecting the toll, whatever, hats off to Mr. Gadkari to introduce the technology enabler, okay, FASTag, and it prevented almost like 40% of leakage that used to happen in the country. So India has made certain quantum leap, but there are certain still inherent challenges, and that is what the next step perhaps has to be.
To play a devil's advocate, we still do not have digitization of land records. That is a one major step that state governments could easily take. And even as recent as about 2-3 years back, we were talking about blockchain and we were going all gaga about blockchain and how it could help even digitization of land records and so on and so forth. Nothing, it just turned out to be a big nothing.
the digitization of records of the land, it has started even in Bangalore. The pilot project is all there. I got my own digital certificate for my, where I stay in Jayanagar. So I got that. So it is something that will touch everybody, okay? So I would only say, instead of blaming something, let's also become someone to, a solution provider, see how we can work together to take this country to the next level. That's where I see rather than just blaming it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you have any point to add, sir?
In fact, I would agree with Indu Shekhar and as well as Mr. Mahesh Murthy, though a lot of good things have happened in India. So, like for instance, a lot of acts have been repealed, and decriminalization of so many procedures have been done, about 3,500. That is a step in, and digitization happened in everything, be it passport or tax payment, income tax or GST or MCA, or everything is digitized. But as one of the practitioners put it rightly, uploading documents is a big issue because of the service provider. In fact, we had faced problems with income tax portal 2 years back. Similarly, GST portal also had some issues, and MCA portal also had issues. These are the what you call initial hiccups, which can be sorted out. But another thing is, say, GST is a very good reform in India. It is in a federal setup. It has subsumed various taxes in central and state. One thing is, but they have to work together. They are working together, but there are certain things which center wants to implement, but cannot implement because of the state's what you call non-cooperation, or they want their own revenue targets. One example, case in point is petroleum. Petroleum is not in GST because it is a major revenue earner for the states. So where do they get funds from? They are cribbing. Center has to give funds. All they are getting 50% of the funds in GST. But they don't have the autonomy anymore. And one more thing is, there is a level, what they call no level playing field. Earlier they has to give sale tax incentives and deferrals and subsidies. Now it is no longer there. So it is more of a level playing field across India. So as far as the, subsidies and facilities are concerned, it is more of what you call how cut down the procedures. Another point I would say is the intentions of the governments are very good, but it is not percolating down to the lower level. We find, I think, for example, everything is automated. Faceless assessment in income tax or in customs. But customs post-audit, there is a what you call audit. And they are not educated and they raise a lot of queries. Income tax also, they don't understand the company. It is a plus as well as a minus.
Yes. Ram sir, if you were to give some strong cues to the government and some subtle cues to the government, would you have those strong sentiments that you would like to pass on?
Yeah. Okay, let's put it this way, that in a democracy, typically, especially in a country context like India, while Japan may be driven by timeliness, here the politically elected representatives get re-elected largely based on aspects of welfare and equity. So a bureaucrat essentially is someone who has to ensure that the political person's perspective gets captured in terms of ensuring that equity, welfare and aspects such as those get captured. Whereas an entrepreneur would love to have what we call as subsidies or investment facilitation services to be done by states. As Mahesh pointed out, these days even countries do compete with each other in terms of investment facilitation services, not just states with each other. And definitely there is this choice to walk out. What I would like to say is, can we create a critical mass or an inflection point wherein it becomes nearly impossible for someone to move out of a Bangalore or a Karnataka or India to kind of think of doing business outside there. It's like for any IT company, San Francisco becomes the Silicon Valley, right? Anyone else who wants to do business in any other place, it becomes very you would agree that it's far more tougher to do the same business or get funding or get access. So inflection point essentially is a critical mass of set of entrepreneurs and an amount of business wherein it becomes nearly impossible to move out of that particular place. So that is one. Second thing, I think sir rightly pointed out, there have been a lot of changes. For example, Spice, that is, you can start a company online. Then similarly, let's say EPFO and ESIC have been kind of aligned with the Shram Suvidha portal itself. Almost all 40 labor laws, etc., have been now these days kind of said, okay, we'll put it as part of the Shram Suvidha portal. Similarly, the common seal which was needed earlier to even open a bank account, now that has been done away with. So a tremendous amount of changes have happened. So similarly, let's say even for MSMEs to get funding, earlier they would take up from private finances, etc. These days you have PMMY, that is Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, wherein they find out the banks essentially, they are able to get funds, which was earlier difficult. Similarly, you have an e-Bij portal which says what are the difficulties sector-wise. So there are ways and means in which things are working. And of course, GST has been a fantastic move. We see the benefits of it. Similarly, tax. So things where government, especially at the center, they want to do and they are able to do, they're going ahead and doing it. Even at the cost of possibly getting one or two monopolies out there getting created out there, which is what some hints have been thrown. It's true, but where they have where there is a need for the states and the center to come together, or where the state has a more say, there you would agree that the politically elected representatives of that place will have to have a go, right?
Mahesh, I see that you have entered into a thought process of your own as Ram was saying that.
Entered into a thought process. I work here, I invest here, I live here. I have nothing against government, for government. It's something I have to live with. There's a price to pay. You make in the accounting, you make the budget, you do it. I mean, there's nothing, I am not, it's a way of doing business. I mean, to do business in China, you have to pay a price. To do business in India, you have to pay a price. And frankly, I know, my colleague here on the right is saying, yes, we're moving forward. But I have been in conferences like this for the last 20 years. The same line was said 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And I believe 5 years from now, it's just said, yes, we are moving forward. I don't think we're moving forward fast enough. Yeah, obviously, there is always... Yeah, digitization is a big thing, but yeah, digitization happened around the world 15 years ago. It's happening, it's all right, it's good, right? So I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm also not like part of the WhatsApp Bhakt uncle group saying it is the best in the world, UNESCO certified, nonsense, right? It's high time it happens, fine, it's all right. Okay. I think coming down to the nub of it, if I start from, the base point, I come from a traditional South Indian Tamilian Brahmin Iyer family. Nobody in my forefathers has ever worked for themselves. We've always done service, right? And I was brought up to believe, yes, join government service, and many people in my cohort and my age group were brought up similarly. I think what's really happened since then is two things. One, that service has become less interesting to a lot of people. There is not enough employment that pays well enough, and there is a dream of entrepreneurship that has risen among hundreds of thousands of youth today. That change has happened in the last 20 years. It's not any one government, it's got nothing, it's just more kind of, bottom up. There are far more people who look to start up right now than they were 20 years ago, than they were 30 years ago, right? Everybody's out there, everybody comes and listens. But I also do want to say that there is an extraordinary gap between the policy and the reality. Yes, you can say we have Mudra Yojana, but tell me where are the companies that are funded by it? Yes, you can say we have companies started pure online. Show me that company, please. Right? So the reality on the ground has got very little to do with proclamations in cyberspace or WhatsApp groups about how great India is. The reality on the ground is what every person who's starting a company, who's accounting a company, knows what the reality on the ground is, right? And we know that we live in the dual nation where there's a particular level of propaganda and reality is something else altogether. So I'm not dealing with the propaganda. I'm saying forget that. Discard every WhatsApp forward that you get and concentrate on that reality of actually what does it start to, what does it cost to start a business? What does it cost to run a business? What does it cost to shut down a business? We all went virtual in COVID, but we still have to fill attendance reports, right? Yeah, you can fill it digitally, but what is the, I mean, but still one labor register has to be kept at one particular office. We have to, in some ball, we have to put 10 certificates, otherwise we don't exist as a company. Despite the fact that we are all supposed to be, very COVID resilient and stuff. So there is a huge gap between stated intention and the reality. And some of it is deliberate in the sense even the stated intention knows that the reality will never happen. But you have to state that intention for propaganda or whatever purposes. So let's put that aside. I'm not trying to conflate stated policy with reality, that there's an extraordinary gap out there. But coming to the key point, which is really what if you're talking about starting up, and where we have a ton of bright people out here. Finally, in that it's not funding that produces entrepreneurs as much as it's entrepreneurship and that feeling of enterprise that does it. A large number of companies, Infosys never got funded, Tata never got funded, and they didn't get venture capital. They got contracts and they got business. The best business is, best funding is of course customers. So we are in danger of losing tens of thousands of our best and brightest to other countries around the world. Last year, if my numbers got it right, 4 lakh Indians gave up their passport, right? Because for, again, strange reasons. I mean, today, for example, if I live half my life outside India, for the next 4 years, no matter when I earn nothing in India, my global income is taxable in India. So there is a bunch of people out there who are now leaving India, giving up the passport, getting an OCI, coming back, because that is the only way they can say, not have to pay Indian tax on their global income. They have to give up the passport. So essentially, I'm saying we have to do these jugards because there is not a straight, clean, easy way of doing this. So if you're focused on keeping the best and the brightest in India, it is not about subsidy. You create a clean environment. I wrote an article after which you got in touch where, we talked about the fact that venture capital is ready and waiting in India. The point is that the VCs like me don't want to invest because entrepreneurs are stealing money left, right, and center, right? And after they steal money, they go on Shark Tank and become judges, all right? Every single judge on Shark Tank runs a company where they have never made money. They've only taken money from the company and put in other startups. All right? So as long as we live in an environment where we are enabling the corruption of entrepreneurs, where there's nothing, the government doesn't care, saying, and the fund is not prosecuting, saying, it'll take me 5 years to win a commercial case, right? And the guys go, the entrepreneurs go and write books saying, Doglapan, I stole money, so what, even he stole money, why are you calling me, whatever it is, right? So we live in an environment where we celebrate in some ways fraud. We celebrate quick, fast cash. And finally, at the end, there will be some entrepreneurs who will say, I will live with that. I will work with that. The others will say, dude, I'm going to go. All right? So if you are concerned about that lot of people out there, you want them to stay in India, I think you have to, it's not about subsidy. You have to give them a clean working environment, as in a way to start business, minimum hassle, right? It should not take more than 2, 3, 4 hours in a month to sort your compliances. Today, I have to keep, even in my smallest company, at least 4 people only to manage compliances. Even if the company is only doing 1 crore of revenue a year, I have to have 4 people managing compliance on that.
Well, there are startups who are starting up on that as well.
And those startups also need 4 people to manage compliance for, for their own compliance where they are offering compliance to others. All right? So you can say, we are creating a problem, but a problem, there's an opportunity, it's a startup to solve the problem. So my issue is that, again, 2, 3 points. One, do not confuse policy with reality. Focus on reality. We can state anything at the government level, it doesn't mean that it's actually implemented at the ground. Second, prosecute criminality. Right? If you don't prosecute criminality, then every entrepreneur out here says, that's the only way I can succeed in India. If I want to take over a company, I have to get ED to put a raid and then go and say, sell me the company. That's how you buy companies in India, that's how you buy legislators in India. Right? ED comes and says, okay, here's your dossier, or here's 50 crores, join this party. Right? So if there are people who are, okay, that's the way of doing business. I'm not passing moral judgment. So if you like that, you will live here. If you don't like that, you will not live here. So finally, we're at a point where there are more existential questions as what kind of person do you want to be? What kind of entrepreneur, businessman, politician do you want to be? And unless you solve those problems, you can have any propaganda you have out there, but you will create people, you will create a culture that will suit that particular way. Right?
Thanks, Mahesh.
He's so embarrassed, moderator. So Mahesh, keep quiet, Mahesh, keep quiet.
No. Mahesh being classic Mahesh. This is how he has been. He has never changed, as far as I know. And you do check out his article, which is Vulture Capitalist, that he has written, which is a fascinating article. And now I know that there is quite a bit of fan following in the audience for you gentlemen. And I think the audience would like, is there a question that you would like to pose to, very briefly and as laconic as possible, and perhaps answers to be as laconic as possible too? Can I throw the floor open to the audience?
Put your hands up, guys. So there's somebody with a question there. Yeah. Any more hands?
I mean,
Any
you
more?
don't need a mic. You can just spout it out.
Of course, from morning we have been talking, government has to do that, government has to do this. Name certain departments also, like central, state and all. But I don't know, we have been, we have been thinking of government has to do that, this and all, no? Like why can't you smart cities, can you make smart departments? Can you take over under the CSR? Probably BCIC can take it up and say that, look, we are going to have a venture capitalist to improve this particular department. We work on this department, probably I'll take RTO, sub-registrar who have been talking up. I'll digitize, I see the setup, the process automation, and I'll fund it through CSR, I'll hand it out to government. Can you do that?
That's dangerously close to a coup, but I think Professor Kakani would be the right person to answer the question.
Okay. You see, we need to understand one thing. Smart city is a very good example of private parties, that is using the PPP mode or whatever, using a special purpose vehicle, creating an entity. But what happens in a smart city, I'll give you a small example, is hiring, firing, etc., etc., there is no reservation and aspects such as those. Similarly, if you take out a certain chunk of government, ask a private entrepreneur or ask a BCIC to do it, what will happen is it will go to certain community groups, caste, cadre, religion, whatever you may call, certain close cluster groups, which essentially will dominate the discourse. The whole idea of having a government is ensuring representation of everyone. You have officers from Jammu and Kashmir also, you have officers, you have enough, let's say, impaired or PWD, etc., or Divyang, whatever you may call. You will not find that in a private sector out there. Let me give you a very concrete example. You want to be in an iBanking job of Bombay, you need to be part of just 5 to 6 communities out there. Others will never be able to enter it. So there are problems out there which the entrepreneurs also have. So the idea of outsourcing it to them, I think
Not
is
really
practically
outsourcing.
difficult.
I'm not sure I quite agree about, I've met many iBankers in my life because I bought and sold companies with them. I wonder which communities they are from, so I'm not so sure about that. But the entire idea of private governance
I'm sorry, maybe I may not be I'm not saying that I'll take out the government job and I'll do it myself or probably do that, not the one. I'm just trying to tell, let's help the government put together, bring up the system, probably the sub-register office now, they have a digitalization, but it will take 3 hours to get a OTP, you have to wait for that.
So there are examples of that. If you look at Jamshedpur, it was set up by Tata Steel. It was run by Tata Steel, till of course it was taken away from them. Right? It was a beautiful city, and now obviously it is just another city in India. Most industrial cities in India have always had some large company come in and do it, right? And they did it without any PPP or whatever. They did it from the goodness of the heart, saying, I need to have a good standard of life. So there are corporate groups who do believe in that. But what happens there is that somebody walks in and says, okay, you know what, now that you've set it up, come in and you need, X% reservation for vocal allegas and a Y% reservation for this, and, my trade union has to be there and that has to be there. And finally, guys, why should I bother? I'll take it to Vietnam. All right, I'll take it to Gujarat, which is the new, I'll take it to Vietnam. So I think so finally in the end, what is it exactly that you want? So you can say that I want the efficiency. Sure, it will be run with efficiency, but then every single regulation, the ones in fact that I think Mr. Ram is touting are the ones that I'm actually anti-touting, right? As a private sector enterprise, so today I have to sit back and say, okay, if I'm above a certain number of people, then I suddenly have to hire based on reservation. I don't hire Brahmins, I don't matter. It doesn't matter to me. I hire who is right for the job. When you start telling me who I should hire, I'll set up another company with up to 100 people, and so I don't want to fall under this. I don't want to then have an auditor who sits back and says, how many left-handed people have you hired? How many people with white eyebrows have you hired? How many people with big butts have you hired? Because there's a government quota for each of these. So he can say it is for equity. I'm out there saying, I really don't want any of this. All right? I do believe, heart of hearts, that if we leave an entrepreneur to themselves, they will hire the best people for the job, regardless of caste, creed, community. Now, he may believe so, that's right. I'm happy to disagree with him, and I respectfully disagree on that front.
Thank you, Mahesh.
Thank you.
I believe that's all the time that we have.
Oh, yes. So my question was, do you ever foresee a point of time where maybe the ease of doing business will become a little too easy? For example, it's fairly easy to get a TRC in Singapore, right? But Singapore, like when you're looking at the angel tax, they're not really being put under the ambit of exemption. So do you think India would ever reach this point where ease of business in India becomes a little too easy?
Why do we have to compare Singapore versus India?
No, that was just an example because...
This is India.
No, that's true, that's true.
That is Singapore.
Yes.
1.4 billion people. 1.4 billion people. So my view is, yeah, we can all keep on saying this is not okay, that is not okay, that is the best. We can keep saying that. But we need to change the systems in India, right? And the best way to do is to work with those agencies. Fight for those to make sure that the change happens. And I would believe the journey is on. I represent industry, and even after 50 years, Toyota still says we have so much of waste in our process. So you should understand, the more deeper you go, the more gold you get. So you have so much of opportunity to throw out the waste. Similarly, make sure in all our process and reforms, so much there for whatever, 100 years, 200 years, I don't know. But they will have to go away at some stage. To me, ease of doing business at some stage will stabilize. But my big worry is on the quality of the product and services from India. If we don't give all a spotlight on that, it would be a huge challenge for India. Quality and the quality of service.
In fact, I would say this is where I think Mr. Indushekhar told, that is where BCIC is working. In fact, we have been working with the government agencies for 30 years. So many things we have been able to change. But not that policy level things are changed. But implementation, yes, as I agree with Mr. Mahesh Murthy, ground level, some realities are there which has to, change. It is not percolated down the bureaucracy. And many, even revenue department, many are revenue oriented. And second is, I think, judicial process. It is one thing, the main thing which has to, undergo a change. Government is the biggest litigator in all of things. So even in tax systems, I think many controls have been brought to, frivolous litigations are avoided. But even now, we have litigations. Like Vodafone case, for example, even in GST. GST is a very good reform, but there also we have issues like advance ruling. Everything is in favor of the revenue. We have what I call something like as silly as cross charge. Head office serving branch office. That is because the federal system. They want to share the revenue. It is all ultimately boils down to revenue for the government. Where do they get revenue? And second is some other things. There are no pre-inspection GST, but it has come back again because a lot of bogus companies are there to avail bogus credit. So partly even business people are also responsible for creating more controls.
No, I think I'd largely agree with the point here, what Mahesh is conveying is what entrepreneurs typically have. They have a lot of impatience, and which is what I think is clearly coming out here. Whereas other panel members seem to be saying largely things are improving, they are improving, and I guess it's a work in progress. Yes, it may take another 10 to 20 years, but by 2047, my sense is we should be in the top 10 of our ease of doing business. In Asia, in world.
Okay, with that, I think Venkat sir has a question. I'm so sorry. I think the audience is so enthused that they're not letting you go. I'm so sorry.
While we have had a wide spectrum of ideas which has been given, if I were to ask every panel member to give me one item which they would like to see done to improve the ease of business. One item.
Enforcement of contracts. The other one is the registration of properties, the delay. The 2 points he has already said.
No, I mean, just simplify taxation. That's all. And GST is not simplified enough. It is not. It's not as simplified enough. Just simplify taxation. I mean, it's very straightforward. I mean, even today, it does not require fewer people to solve your tax, a company's tax, than it did 5 years ago. Right? I still have to go through the same system. In some ways, you know, I understand you're a chartered accountant, but if you look at, we have among the highest ratios of chartered accountants to companies in India compared to chartered accountants to companies anywhere else in the world. In Netherlands, I run 4 companies with 1 accountant half-time. Here, I have probably across my companies 200 accountants working. All right? So, I'm sorry, I mean, it's almost like aapke pet pe laat mar raha hu. But finally, the very existence of this extraordinary profession to solve the tax problem shows that there is a tax problem. And it's not fair to ask you to solve the tax problem, because you're not going to create anything that will put yourself out of a job.
Yeah, the single window system perhaps is one area that it exists, but then lots need to be done to make sure it's more effective. Okay? Yeah. We will have to address it. We will have to address it. Yeah.
Contract enforcement and courts.
I think litigation should come down. Government should not litigate on frivolous things, and revenue-minded approach should go. It should foster business. Business will automatically, because the buoyancy, revenue government will get. They should not again. They have brought down income tax, so many things. It is very good.
Nobody has a problem paying tax. Just make it predictable.
Correct. No, GST was a very good reform. In fact, I had handled the tax hands-on at many companies. I know the ease actually, which has come, but there are problems as well.
Thank you for such a lively panel.
Thank you, the moderator.
Thank you.
Oh. Give him a big hand, guys.
Thank you. I'm going to be joining the panel, the panel after this, which is post-lunch, and the one after that. Yeah. I'll be perhaps grilled with such questions. And please do, socialize with us. Please do have lunch. The lunch spread is fantastic. Thank you.
Please stay back 1 minute. We just have to do the honors.
Yes.
We will have a networking lunch here. Panelists will be here. Please shoot all your questions. I still remember the school days where we were taught Darwin's theory. We are still a long way to go in terms of ease of doing business. You know, it's a transformation which is going to happen. I would request our president, Mr. Ravindran, to be here. Mr. B.R. Indushekar. Dr. Ramprasad. Venkatakrishnan, please.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Mahesh Muti, I would request PG Subramanian to come on. Mr. Ravichandran. Give a sapling. Mr. Pankaj Jain, please. BCIC should be. BCIC should. Last but not the least, Dr. Srikanth. Please give him a big applause. Guy was just shooting from his cuff. Wonderful, wonderful. May I request Venkatakrishnan to please come?
It's already in my hands.
You have snatched from me.